Do 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 do. Play that sick beat.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
Hey, happy Friday, guys. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. What is up, fam? It has been a crazy week, right? Crazy week. If you didn't get a chance to do so, I want to let you guys know, obviously I don't go live on, I usually do go live Thursday evening, but last night I didn't because I was going to do the Jill Stein VP announcement panel, but that was rescheduled for next Friday. So you'll see me there next Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, along with my comrade Nick and JB from RBN. So that should be exciting. I don't know who the VP is going to be. I know people have been asking me. I have no idea. So it'll be new to me too on Friday as well. So just FYI. But I wasn't live Thursday last night, but I did record two clips. The one about Scott Ritter being raided by the FBI, and then also the real reasons why Cori Bush lost. So check out those clips. It's interesting. Those clips are doing really well. Considering they weren't a part of a live stream. But yeah, definitely check out those when you get a chance. Another announcement I want to let you know of, Glenn Greenwald will be back on the show next week. So don't miss that. I believe we're recording Monday afternoon. So that video should post on Tuesday afternoon. So don't miss that. We have a lot to discuss with Glenn. Glenn is going off on Twitter. Glenn is mad at some people. So we have a lot to discuss, and it's actually in reference to one of the stories that we're going to discuss tonight. I want to start off by giving shout outs to people in the chat. What's going on, guys? I know it's Friday. I'm ready for the weekend. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Shout out to I Know Myself. Under Kamala / Donald J. likely to be conscriptions to fight in a nonsensical war somewhere, and therefore expecting a mass migration of Americans to Mexico, working on that dual citizenship. You know, if I could do it all over again, and I don't know if you guys ever thought about this, but if I could do it all over again, going back to my younger self, I think I would have left the US. I think I would have been, exploring like what Nico's doing now. Nico moved to Brazil. I think I would have done that. Now, granted, I already had experiences living abroad, but looking back on it, I don't know. I don't know if it was the best decision to come back to the US. I don't know, fam. Shout out to Miguel, says, peace. Greetings, Tim. How is genocide not a red line? Shame on Mark Lamont Hill for endorsing or lesser of two evils BS. I will never vote for genocide, Kamala. Vote Jill Stein, people, and vote no to genocide. Love you, Sabs. I agree with you there, man. I think some people are just trying to find ways to ride this Kamala train. We'll get into that a little bit later. Greetings, Aspen Fallmoon, says, Tim, though, agreed 1,000,000%. If there was ever a red line, it would be a freaking genocide. Yep. Greetings, New York Varsity, says, I was an RFK guy, but you know what changed that? You did, Sabby. Me? I am not a one-issue voter. But you staying with constant reporting about Gaza has made this a deal breaker. Thank you, Sabs. Oh, wow. Well, thank you. That's interesting to know. I'm having somewhat of an impact. Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Tim, though, absolutely. Dr. Jill Stein for president. Greeting, Tyrone. You better call Tyrone. Do we need to call you, Ty? Do we need to call you? And tell him come get his South Carolina present and accounted for B1. Let me quit. Tyrone's gonna be like, let me get this girl. Greetings, David. Sabby, he is my governor. Oh, Wall. Sad to see him gaslighting. Ah, so you're in Minnesota. Interesting. Greetings, Penny. Stolen valor, Tim. Question mark. How is pretending to invade Iraq and killing 1 million people brave? I heard about that story. It's all over the place. I don't know what Tim's doing. Don't know. Greetings, Thon, says, oh, snap. TGIF, y'all. What's up, Thon? What's up? Greetings, Cup of Joy, said, did Jill Stein announce her VP running mate? That will be next Friday. There's a whole panel of us that are going to be a part of that discussion. Greetings, Bruce. That Pelosi photo in the thumbnail, I'm speechless. Every now and then I find really good pictures. It fits the story, though. Like, it's a story. It fits the story. Greetings, Hannah G, says, Nancy laughing. I guess that's about the thumbnail as well. Shout out to Transmission. Hello from Scotland, Sabby. I am now a year older as it's past midnight in the UK and would love a little happy birthday from you, Sabby, and make my day. Loved your little bit on Nick's show. Yeah, I popped in for a second on Nick's stream for RBN just to vent a little bit. Then I had to go, but he had a guest coming on anyway. But happy birthday to you, Transmission GGB. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to ya. Yay, Transmission GGB. Greetings, Max says, we don't want a princess. Harris, oh, you do not. Greetings, Mark says, Sab, I hate when they call Dems. We hate Marxists or far left. I wonder what that does to the Overton window. Yeah, that's on purpose, by the way. That is on purpose. Greetings for the people. Cup of Joy, Jill Stein will announce her VP running mate on Friday, August 16th. It's on the events page of her website. You'll see that a familiar journalist is part of the rally. That would be me. I will be there. Good commentator. Shout out to PC, says, oh, this is going to be a good one. Yeah. Greetings, Bryce. Shout out to the Gray Zone for shouting out Sabby Sabs. It's about that time. Oh, well, thank you. I'm seeing this from a bunch of people. Philosophical, Gray Zone sent me, but I was going to be here anyway. Oh, wow. Well, thank you to the Gray Zone. Kill Your Egorger says Gray Zone just wrapped up and sent Max recommended we all go to Sabby stream. That is really sweet. Well, thank you. Thank you, Gray Zone, for that one. Awesome. Wow. Let's go ahead and dive in, fam. Should we dive in? Yeah. We have a lot to get into. We also have a bonus story, pretty exciting one, if you care about labor. So, I mean workers, not birth. I gotta say it. I was at a barbecue recently. A friend of mine is getting married, and that wedding's coming up pretty soon. And they were having a barbecue, and it was funny because he said, "Oh, we have a baby. We might have a baby on the way." And all of us just kind of paused, and we thought he meant that they were about to have a baby. But he meant that there was actually a couple that was coming, and they may be bringing their baby. So I was like, "What?" Anywho, let's go ahead and dive in. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons. Oh my God. Funny things. I was like, really? All right. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories here. Ultimate, they're Sabinators. Don't forget about those Sabsters. They're holding down the fort there as well. I'm looking at the comments. It's funny. And we also have Sabbies. Shout out to them. And of course, don't forget members. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you holding down the fort around here. And I do want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Nicholas, Anthony Valdez, Alice R. Hammers, Kitty, and Deborah. I say it that way because there's another Deborah that's a patron. So I noticed she put hers with a capital B. So shout out to Deborah. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys. Let's go ahead and jump right in, fam. We have quite a bit to discuss. Let's go ahead and put up that thumbnail. These are funny times and these are strange times, but we're going to get into all of it. Tonight, we are discussing Chris Cuomo presses Mehdi Hasan over the most ridiculous thing whatsoever. And Mehdi Hasan really reads Chris Cuomo in this debate. He really nails it here. There's also a shout out to Jill. We're going to get into that as well. So I thought that was a really interesting discussion. Chris Cuomo is being ridiculous when they're talking about who Kamala Harris happened to choose as a VP running mate. And Chris Cuomo is just, this guy is really fishing, really fishing. We're also going to discuss, of course, you've probably heard it all across the world by now. Kamala Harris is confronted in Michigan, the swing state, ladies and gentlemen, and her response is being criticized heavily. Of course, some of the Kamala stans, we call them K-Hive, they're applauding what she said. I don't think it needs to be applauded at all. And I'm going to explain to you why what she said is concerning and who it reminds me of. I have a lot to mention there. We're also going to discuss, if you have not heard about this, the shocking IDF video. You will see there's a picture of Netanyahu there. We need to talk about what is happening at the Palestinian Detention Center, which has pretty much been live streamed on Channel 12. We're going to get into that, and no accountability here for those soldiers that are continuing to abuse Palestinian people. We're also discussing Nancy Pelosi tells all. Look at that picture of Nancy's face. Nancy tells all, but Nancy tells a little too much. Nancy Pelosi is on a press tour for her new release book. And apparently she has said some things on a couple of appearances that we're going to get into. And that's why I chose that picture, because she's just like, well, it is what it is. And last but not least, we do have a bonus story, a huge pro-worker story that I think is honestly going to make a lot of waves. And I think this is going to be good for them. And of course, let's not forget, we are starting the 2024 ballot initiatives tonight. So again, if you live in a ballot initiative state and you don't want to vote for president, please go and vote for those ballot measures, because they will affect you directly. Okay? That's something that is direct democracy. So go out there and get your vote, at least for those. Okay. All giggles aside, let's give a shout out to Beauty and the Boomer. What's up, guys? What is up, Chandra and Oz? The Cori Bush segment was excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. I recorded that, so I'm not always sure, like, sometimes if it's something that's breaking and I know I'm not going to be live that night, I'm like, well, I guess I should just record this and just upload it. So I don't know how well I do when I record a video because I haven't done that in a long time. And also I have no audience to, like, there's no one in the chat for me to talk to. So, but thank you for that. Check that out, guys, if you haven't seen it. Like I said, yes, the APAC was a huge factor in why she didn't win, but it's not the only reason. So definitely check out that, guys. Thank you for the super sticker, James Starks. Thank you so much for that. It reminds me of what do you call it? Star Trek. I don't know. I hear that as like James Starks. And shout out to IBN Issa for becoming a Sabby member. Thank you so much for that. We are going to get into a huge labor story that is making the waves. This was announced today. And I just say shout out to the hotel employees. This is huge. And not just in the Boston area, but it is starting to spread all over New England. We got to bring this in, folks. Shout out to the workers. Boston hotel workers vote to strike. Holy smokes. Thousands of hotel workers across Boston and Cambridge hotels are prepared to walk off the job. Let's give it up for Local 26, fam. Local 26. Let's get into this. Yeah, buddy. Thousands of hotel workers in Boston and Cambridge may soon walk out following a strike authorization vote on Thursday. 99% of voting members approved. So they voted just yesterday. 1 second. As many as 4,500 hotel workers in Boston and Cambridge could strike as early as August 31st. The Unite Here Local 26 Hospitality Workers Union, they announced this recently. The Boston Globe reported it would be the first citywide hotel action in modern history if the strike occurs. Ladies and gentlemen, they are not playing around, fam. They said, when we fight, we win. Let me tell you why this is incredibly significant. For those who don't live in the area, it is tourist season. So we have long winters here. So tourists usually come to the area during the summer and during the fall, right? So people come up here for the summer to get like, lobster, and you can go to Maine for that too. And it's actually even better in Maine, but they come up here to get the lobster rolls and to do the sightseeing and all that jazz, all the historic tours that you can do here, the duck boat tours. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? And in the fall, it's also a busy tourist season because a lot of people come up here to see fall foliage, right? And get all the pumpkin stuff. It's my favorite season. Pumpkin donuts, used to be pumpkin coffee until I stopped drinking pumpkin coffee, but pumpkin tea, pumpkin ravioli. It's pumpkin everywhere, man. So fall is my favorite season. If this strike goes through and it starts October or August 31st, as they said, you're talking about a huge impact to the economy here in Boston because we make a lot of money off of tourism alone. I remember reading this one day that Faneuil Hall, near the downtown area in Boston, it's one of the most visited places in the United States after Disney World. So there's a lot of tourists here right now, and they'll continue through the fall. However, if the hotel workers go on strike, those tourists are going to have to find another place to stay. Now, before you tell me, well, they can just rent an Airbnb. I don't know about you guys, but I have not had good experiences with Airbnbs, especially if the owner is still on the property and they don't have a separate entrance. Some of the Airbnb hosts, they have requirements such as you have a curfew, you have to knock on the door to have them let you in. And I don't know about you guys, but like if I go out for like a drink or something, I don't want to come back and knock on the door and have you let me in. I feel like I'm living with my parents again or something like that, right? It's kind of weird, right? Also, I don't want to have a curfew. I'm an adult. So I don't know, fam, where are all these people going to stay if all the hotel workers go on strike? So this is huge. Some properties that could be affected are the Omni Boston Hotel in Seaport. This is a huge one, guys. And the Seaport area in Boston used to be like just nothing but abandoned warehouses and empty parking lots. But they've built that area up, and it's incredible now. There's a lot of restaurants down there and bars, and there's also a bowling alley in Seaport now. There's the LO Bean store. They've really built it up. So if this happens, this is going to be something else. David said you found some bad Airbnb, Sabby. I can hook you up. I don't know, man. I don't know. It goes on to say the Globe reports that the work stoppage could involve around 2/3 of the full service hotel rooms in Boston, over 35 properties at once. Over 35 properties all at once, or the stoppages could happen individually. The strike was announced at City Hall Plaza on Thursday evening, where dozens of workers were wearing red union shirts. We're seeing chanting and videos on social media saying, "Make them pay." Here it is, folks. They are not playing around. Hey, that's right. That's right. Make them pay. City council members and Mayor Michelle Wu joined the protesters. So this is interesting. I don't know if people know, but Mayor Wu, I'm not sure if I was told a month ago that she is not running for re-election. Now, she has appeared at protests before, but I was told that she's not running for re-election. And it was actually just announced by the Boston Globe that Mayor Michelle Wu is pregnant again. So that could be part of the reason why she may be entertaining not running for re-election. But yeah, you got the city council members, you got the mayor. The strike vote shows that you are willing to withhold your labor and sacrifice so you can secure the contract you deserve, said Wu. When your back is against the wall, you stand your ground and you act with courage and conviction necessary to build a better life for you and your families. She continued, "Let me be crystal clear. You are not alone in this fight. The city of Boston is standing with you, and we have your back every step of the way." You see this here.
What your work is worth. It shows you're willing to withhold your labor and sacrifice until you secure the contract you deserve. And that in this city, with this logo, when your back is against the wall, you stand your ground and act with the courage and conviction necessary to build a better life for you and your families and families in Boston for generations to come. And I think the energy here today speaks for itself, but let me make it crystal clear. You are not alone in this fight. No están solos en esta lucha.
And for those who don't know, Mayor Wu is from Boston. You know, she grew up here. She went to Harvard. I haven't agreed with some of her housing positions. I've actually spoken to her in person about the lack of affordable housing and the affordable housing units that really aren't affordable to people in the area. So she's not good on housing. And that was something that she ran on heavily when she was running for mayor. That was something that she promised to solve, but so did former Mayor Marty Walsh. So did former Mayor Menino, and the list goes on and on. That is not something that has been resolved. Sparkjoy says there's another recession coming, so this is the perfect time to strike and renegotiate the collective agreement. I agree with you 100%. It goes on a little bit more here. As contract expirations loom, United Here is leading a nationwide effort for workers demanding higher wages, fair staffing and workloads, and the reversal of pandemic-era staffing cuts. Representing over 10,000 hotel workers, the organization will hold votes in 9 cities. I told you it's expanding, including Providence, Rhode Island, where they are also part of Local 26. Carlos, president of Local 26, said the last time the union negotiated hotel contracts was in 2018 before the pandemic. Since then, the hotel occupancy levels have rebounded, but staffing levels have not. The union says worker hours are down 15% compared to 2019 as jobs go unfilled and hotels use fewer workers per shift. I agree to this. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I have noticed since the pandemic, if I travel, it used to be that housekeeping would knock on the door every morning. That doesn't happen anymore, at least not in my experience. What I've seen happen is that if you want to have housekeeping, you have to like put out there's a little, what do you call it? There's a little thingy, door handle hangy thing. And you have to put the hanging tag on the door that says you do want housekeeping. In fact, where was I just recently? Oh yeah, we were just in Vermont. It was another thing too, where like they don't just come and clean, the rooms every day anymore. It's kind of like you have to request it. Part of that goes back to the pandemic and safety precautions, but another part of that is also due to the fact that they just don't have adequate staffing like they used to. The Globe reports that the union is asking for increases to pension benefits and a housing fund, which will provide loans of up to $10,000 to members buying a home. The union also wants to establish funds to assist workers with child and elder care costs and renew the daily room cleaning agreement. See, I told you. Daily room cleaning, requiring rooms to be automatically cleaned daily unless a guest requests otherwise. See, that's what I was telling you. They weren't doing this anymore. All right. It goes on to say, Unite Here Local 26 did not immediately respond to a request for further information on next steps. So that is huge, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at Boston hotel workers vote to go on strike during tourist season and peak tourist season. This is spreading throughout New England. Let's see if it happens, but I hope they get what they're asking for. Now is the time. Spark Joy is correct. They know we're heading, the stock market just crashed. They know we're heading into another recession. So now is the time to bargain and have your demands met. Let's wish them the best. Wish them the best. Colin said, can confirm I'm in Canada. ATM, the front desk, told me that they are short staffed, that they will not be cleaning rooms every day. Yeah, it was the same way when I was in Montreal. It was the same way. They're not doing that. So I hope that they get what they're asking for. And we'll just keep an eye on this story. Yeah, let's go to some of the comments here. Shout out to Beatrice. I love your laugh and your energy, even when covering this much BS. Thanks for your work, Sabby. You are welcome. Bill says the people running big businesses in the USA are straight up stealing from workers. It's one of the most frustrating things for me. Yeah, they are. And look, I worked in a hotel before. I worked in a hotel restaurant many, many years ago. And I'll just tell you that housekeeping, from what I heard from the housekeepers, that's probably one of the most difficult jobs to have. I've heard some stories about things that they've had to clean up in some of those rooms. Apparently, some people like to party like it's a rock star, even if they're not a rock star. You wouldn't believe the stories I've heard. So it's hard work. So shout out to them. Yeah. All right. Oh, thank you, Matthew. I also love your laugh, Sabby Sabs. Thank you. I'm glad people like my laugh, because we don't like Kamala's laugh. Deneen said, hope they're cleaning in between guests. Yeah, they do clean in between the guests, but if you're staying there for 3 nights, they may not clean your room every night that you're there. But yeah, they do clean in between guests, Deneen. We don't want to catch anything. Okay. We don't want to catch anything. All right. Based. Yeah. All right, guys. Go ahead and smash the like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Yeah. And we're moving on. The next story, I wanted to start out with something good and positive before we get to this next story, because this one is rough. Israel. A while back, CNN had an investigation about a Palestinian detention center in Israel. And I covered that story. And I was shocked that CNN actually went there to investigate it. And they said that Palestinian detainees were being tortured at that detention center. So this is going back, but now we're jumping forward to more recent allegations. Since then, there have been claims that Palestinian detainees have been sexually assaulted at that detention center. And now there was a video that was broadcast, and I'm not going to show that video. Obviously, I cannot show that on here, but it's on social media if you want to see it. But there was a video that was broadcast showing an IDF soldier sexually assaulting a Palestinian detainee, and it was broadcast on TV. And this is not something that I can make up. This is very disgusting. And what kills me is that when State Department officials have been confronted about this particular incident, the response is, at least from Matt Miller, the response is, well, that should not happen. And we push for the IDF to investigate it. Right. The IDF is supposed to investigate their own people. We really expect that. That's like asking a police department to investigate their own police department for a police brutality case. Does not make any sense. Now, Hotspot, they've been doing the damn thing on Twitter. They really have been killing it. We're going to start off with the video. Again, like I said, I'm not going to show this full video. But what you will see here, newly released footage shows the most moral IDF using shields while sexually assaulting a Palestinian at a team in torture camp. He was found hospitalized with injuries, including a torn rectum, broken ribs, and ruptured bowels. Accusation equals projection. And yes, because remember, it is always Israel accusing Hamas and Palestinian civilians of committing sexual assault. But when you look at evidence, there was no evidence that that happened on October 7th, even though Dana Bash and a lot of pundits in corporate media would have you think otherwise. Kamala Harris herself hosted an event at the White House to talk about that supposed incident, even though there was no evidence otherwise. As it stands right now, Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump have spoken about this particular incident, which shows there is evidence. So the Palestinian detention center here, let me pause. Again, I'm not going to show the entire video. You can see the detainees are here. They are laying on the ground. And you'll see where they come in.
הנה כאן קבוצה של חיילי המילואים מכוח 100, יחידה משמשת להבטחת המתקן.
So you can see this is where they pick up one of the detainees and they start to take him away from the others. And remember, one of the things that was revealed in that CNN investigation is that oftentimes they are blindfolded, right? They use psychological torture as well, not just physical torture. But again, obviously, there's cameras. So here they are at the entrance of the facility. And we'll stop here because, like I said, I'm not going to show it. But what you see here is the soldiers holding up their shields so you can't see what's happening to that prisoner. And I haven't heard one word from Dana Bash or Jake Tapper. And in particular, let's focus on Dana Bash because she was the one that continued to say that Israelis were sexually assaulted on October 7th with no evidence. Here you have video footage and none of them are talking about it. You know why? Because it's happening to a Palestinian and it's an Israeli that is doing it. To make matters worse, let me just pause here for a second because I want to make sure I start this from the beginning. To make matters worse, here you have that soldier who assaulted the Palestinian prisoner brought onto an Israeli news network. So they don't bring on the victim, they bring on the perpetrator. Let's get into this.
וערב טוב למם, לוחם בכוח 100, שנעצר בפרשה עם המחבל הנוח'בה, יימח שמו. שלום, תודה שבאת לפטריוטים.
שלום, ערב טוב.
מה שלומך?
ברוך השם.
So this is the perpetrator, and you'll notice that he's wearing a mask. Notice that he's wearing a mask. Now, let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. If he's innocent, why is he covering up his face? Why? The audience is clapping. They're clapping for this guy. How insane is this? But I'm going to show you his face in a minute. Watch this.
כמה זמן היית עצור?
יומיים וחצי.
ולמה שחררו אותך?
כי הבינו אין סיכוי שאני עשיתי דבר כזה.
מה הסיפור, תגיד לי? מה קרה?
אין פה סיפור.
מה?
יש פה סיפור מולבש. יש פשוט תיק שתופרים לנו. ואני נמצא פה בוש ונכלם, כאוב ודאב לב, אחרי שהחלטתי להסיר את הכפפות ולהגיע לכאן, בלי לשאול הרבה שאלות, אחרי שאישה פונה אליי ברחוב, ואומרת לי, אתה האנס של המחבל? עד לפה. אנחנו לא אנסים. אנחנו חיילי צה"ל, לא אנסים. ושאף אחד לא ינסה לצייר אותה.
So he's saying we will not sexually assault and no one will try to paint us as that way. I wouldn't even say it's people painting you that way. It's video footage. There's actual evidence. So this is what I've been saying over and over again. Every accusation that they have towards Hamas is a confession. This is what they're doing. And corporate media, all these, by the way, they're all in on it. The commentators for corporate media, the State Department spokesman, Matt Miller, and that other guy that kind of looks like Sagar, they're all in on it, along with the President of the United States, along with the Vice President of the United States. Donald Trump isn't talking about this either. They're all in on it because our government belongs to the Israeli lobby.
אנחנו אנסים. ואת המעשה הזה שנעשה פה אתמול עם הכתבת טלוויזיה הזאת, הערוכה והמגמתית, עם ישראל, תקשיבו לי, אין סיכוי בעולם שאנחנו אנסנו או עשינו מעשה של אינוס.
So here he is saying there's no one in the world that we would do this to. Yet you actually have, don't forget, it was just about a week or so ago where there were people protesting in Israel for the right to sexually abuse Palestinian people. I can't make this up. And this is why, like, when people say you have to have some sympathy for Israel, I have no sympathy for Israel. Zero. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. It is not just Netanyahu. And this is what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Donald Trump, this is what they would have you believe. They would have you believe that, oh, the problem is just Netanyahu. It's not. It's an entire ideology. Zionism is a problem. Look at the way they treat these people.
אני אבא ל5 ילדים, יש לנו אבא ל7 ילדים, 5 ילדים, 3 ילדים. עזבנו את הכל להתעסק בתינופת. התת מיץ זבל, אני לא רוצה להגיד אפילו אדם. עם הריח המסריח שעולה מהם. ואחרי שאני רואה את הכתבה הזאת שהיא ערוכה, תמונה ממכלאה כזאת, תמונה ממכלאה כזאת, תמונה ממכלאה כזאת, ואתה בא, מצייר פה תמונה כל כך עגומה.
So now he's blaming the press and he's saying they take dark pictures of the IDF soldiers. No, they take what you give them, right? They show what you give them. This is all I'm trying to explain this to people as clearly as I can. I don't want to hear about whether or not he has kids. Just because you have kids doesn't mean that you're not an abuser. But what the behavior that you put out, that's what the press takes. They take what you give them.
אומה על חיילי צה"ל ומוציא, אני לא יודע איך להסביר את זה בכלל. אני בוש ונכלם, כל העולם, ראיתם אתמול אוסף של סרטונים. אגב, תדעו, כל המחבלים שאנחנו לוקחים אותם לחיפוש, אנחנו עומדים ככה עם המגנים בצורה כזאת, זה הנוהל שלנו. זה ההגנה שלנו מפניהם, שהם לא יראו אותם, שהוא לא יראה, שיהיה בצורה כזאת מוגנת. זה לכולם אנחנו עושים את זה.
למה?
ככה זה הנוהל. ככה אני נכנסתי, אני 5 חודשים בנוהל. אני בחור...
אתה זוכר את האירוע הזה שראינו בכתבה הזאת?
באמת שלא, כי זה נכנס לי בתוך מאות של חיפושים. יש חיפושים שנעשים 3 דקות, ויש חיפושים שנעשים 10 דקות.
כלומר, אין לך מושג בכלל על מה מדובר?
לא. פשוט אין לי מושג. זה פשוט שקר שהלבישו עלינו בשביל לרחוץ בנו את הסכין בשביל...
So he's trying to say that it's just a lie in order to present us to the world that he is a predator, and he's saying that he's not. No, the video isn't lying. The video was right there. And I just can't, I can't, if you are innocent, why are you hiding your face? Why are you wearing a mask if you have nothing to hide? I want to show you something else too, because this is one of those things where I've said before. So shout out to Mint Press News here, because they got it right here. This is who the accused is, because on this show, the masks are coming off on this show. Israeli reservist Mir bin Shadrit, who sodomized Palestinians, immediately released and applauded. You see what I mean? They're not held accountable. So they released this guy. And the reason why the IDF behaves the way that they behave and they treat the Palestinians the way that they do is because they know there's no accountability. How can there be accountability when the United States government is telling Israel we have unwavering support for them? How can there be any accountability when you don't have one politician right now in DC that will actually condemn Israel? And you don't condemn Israel just by saying there should be a ceasefire. That's not condemning it. Even AOC, she couldn't even she sold out. They got her to do this webinar, an anti-Semitic, a webinar against anti-Semitism where she conflated anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. That's why DSA withdrew their endorsement for her. So this hold that the Israeli lobby has on the US government, this is a major problem. And I want to be very clear about something, folks. Again, Kamala Harris, I don't see her hosting an event at the White House for Palestinian Americans to talk about this. And there's evidence. But look at what she was willing to go through for Israeli Americans to make them feel comfortable and make them feel safe. I don't see her doing that for Palestinian Americans. So miss me with the whole, well, she's a black woman. She's a woman of color. Of course, she's going to look out for people who are marginalized. No, she's not. And I've already told you on the show how her policies have affected the black community. A lot of these people, they all belong to the Israeli lobby. Whether it's Richie Torres, whether it's her, whether it's Hakeem Jeffries, whether it's Donald Trump, they're all sold out to the Israeli lobby. This is why they continue to defend and support Israel. So I don't understand how anyone at this point can support this administration or Kamala Harris, her run for 2024. I don't understand how you can support any of these people, because this is not going to change. I want to be very clear here about something, folks. As long as AIPAC owns our politicians, this is not going to change. This is why they do this thing where they kind of walk in between, Kamala Harris, she's real slick about this. Trump's more overt about it. Kamala's a little slick about it. So what she'll do is she'll say, we need a ceasefire, then pause and say, at least for 6 weeks. Or she'll say, we need a ceasefire, but then she'll also say, Israel has a right to defend itself. And I want to tell you what that means, folks. If somebody tells you, if a politician in the US tells you that Israel has a right to defend itself and we need a ceasefire, those two statements don't go together. Because if they're telling you that Israel has a right to defend itself, that means the US government is going to continue to send them weapons. And if you're sending them weapons, they're going to use them, which means there is not going to be a ceasefire. This is common sense. But for some reason, I'm noticing a lot of Kamala stands online are not putting two and two together. That's right, James. It's called doublespeak. Exactly. If I'm telling you that there needs to be a ceasefire, but at the same time, I'm saying Israel has a right to defend itself, that means there won't be a ceasefire. You're still giving them weapons. The US gives them the most weapons. And Kamala is going to continue that too. So I want you to think about that when you go to the polls in November. I want you to think about that. The people are like, well, Kamala says, she's not going to be as harsh, or there's a chance that we can push her left. No, you're not. How are you going to push left a politician that takes over $5 million from AIPAC? You really think that Kamala Harris is going to stop giving weapons to Israel? You have lost your damn mind. And some of the commentators, by the way, some of these so-called left commentators that came from the Bernie movement that are now trying to convince you that Kamala is going to do the right thing on that issue and is not going to give them the weapons. These people are just trying to grow their brand and make more money. They're not telling you the truth. They're not being honest with you. And I'll show you an example right here. Notice Trump and Kamala will say Israel has a right to defend itself when the conversation centers around Gaza. They don't mention the West Bank human rights violations because they can't use that statement. As long as AIPAC controls politicians, this won't change. Vote third party. And this came out today. The U.S. won't sanction the IDF unit for human rights violations in the West Bank. Notice that you don't really hear them mention the West Bank. It's always Gaza. This is why I want you to remember, don't forget about the West Bank. Because you see, when it comes to the West Bank, politicians can't say, well, Israel has a right to defend itself, because that's not where the conflict is. That's not where the war is. The war is in Gaza and Lebanon. And technically we could say because they struck Iran as well, and Syria. But the bombing is taking place in Gaza. What's happening in the West Bank is you have Israeli settlers that are armed, that are going to Palestinian homes and kicking these people out of their homes, turning off their water. That's not Israel defending itself. I want you to think about something here for just a second. Imagine if you're just chilling at your house and you're just chilling in the living room watching TV, and 4 people come to your house and start sitting on your front lawn. The next day, when you wake up, there's another group of people that have decided to sit in your backyard. So now you have people sitting on in your front yard and your backyard. And you can't tell them to leave. You can't do anything because you don't really have rights. These are squatters. That happens in the West Bank. Now picture this. The next day you wake up and you have to go to work. In fact, you and everyone in your house has to go to work. So everybody leaves in the morning to go to work. And when you return from work, when you come back to your home, the people who were sitting in the front yard and the people in the backyard, they have now moved into your house. They have changed the locks on the door and you can't get in. Now imagine there's nothing you can do about it. That's what's happening in the West Bank. I bet you would feel some kind of way if that happened to you, right? Nowhere in the world people should be treated like this. I've never, and I got to tell you, in 2024, for people to be treated in such an inhumane way. And you'll see when I get to the Kamala Harris story, because I have some things to say about the event that she had in Michigan and the response that she gave to those protesters. I want to tell you guys something that I don't think I've ever mentioned to you guys. I saw Kamala Harris speak in person many years ago. Kamala Harris has a script. The same mannerisms that she had then years ago, the same type of rhetoric that she had, same statements, is the same thing she's doing now. It's fake. I have to check on my Facebook page, see if I still have those pictures, because I'm gonna show you. I saw her speak years ago. She's a con. We've already been conned. We were conned by Barack Obama when people tried to convince you that he was going to be the next best thing, hope and change. And now you have Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris isn't going to change this. Not when you're taking $5 million from AIPAC. Kamala Harris isn't going to change this. Not when you're taking $5 million from AIPAC. So I'm not here to make you feel sad. I'm not here to bring you down. I'm just here to tell you the damn truth. And honestly, if more people were honest with you guys, we would actually have a bigger third party movement in this country. But because some people, they're more focused with getting people on their shows, getting Democrat politicians to come onto their show and making their show bigger and getting more subscribers and making more money, they're going to lie to you. And the way that I've seen people lie to their audience about how Kamala feels about this issue, it is absolutely disgusting. And I have receipts tonight, and we're going to show them. No one should be treated that way. And Miko Palid sums this up very well. He has tried to explain to people he is Israeli. His dad was a part of the IDF. He's been on the show multiple times. He is an activist in support for the Palestinian people. He sums this up so well, and people really got to get this. This is not just about Netanyahu. Listen.
There is no good Zionism. It's a racist ideology. It's a violent ideology. And don't believe me, look at Palestine the last 100 years. That's Israel. There is no other one. When Israel massacres thousands of people in Gaza, Israelis can stop it immediately. You can have 100,000 Israelis on the streets. Nobody will get shot. Where are they? Where are these Israelis? When did they ever come out? I mean, many. I don't mean 10 in Sheikh Jarrah. Everybody knows what happens when you drop a one-ton bomb in a residential neighborhood. You don't have to be a genius. You know people will die. Israel is a democracy for Jews. And who do they vote for? The same people over and over and over again. Does it matter if it's Gantz or Netanyahu? There is nothing to justify, nothing to excuse what Israel does. Nothing to excuse what the Zionists have been doing in Palestine for 100 years. Nothing. When they bomb Gaza, you can hear it in Tel Aviv.
This is very important for people to understand. There is no good Zionism. It is a racist ideology. And that is coming from an Israeli himself who has seen it all. Now, I was thinking about this the other day when I first saw that video. And every time I see these videos where settlers are stealing Palestinians' homes in the West Bank, and they are going forward with this expansion, by the way, which means more people will be displaced. Everybody see how this works? When we talk about migration, this means more people will be displaced. They will become refugees. I don't know where they will go because Gaza is through. But it reminded me, I remember seeing the photos and the videos of when my grandparents and great grandparents had to deal with burning crosses in their front yard, had to deal with people telling them, get out of the neighborhood, leave, even though it's a Black neighborhood. This country never really healed or learned. We had apartheid in this country. What do you think Jim Crow was? What do you think Jim Crow laws were? That was apartheid. Separate schools for different races. Think about I'm thinking about that economically for a second. Do you really think it's cost effective to have separate schools, separate churches, all this? This country never really healed from that, and apparently didn't really learn that much from that either. And I don't want you to sit here and think that just because, we had a Black president, that does not mean that we didn't learn and grow from that. What we had was someone, Barack Obama, who was basically just another state puppet to do the bidding of the Western Empire. And you notice he didn't do anything for Black people either. And you think Kamala Harris is going to? She won't even admit that it's a genocide. She said we need a ceasefire. She's saying this is a genocide? No. Everyone needs to wake up. I'll say it again. There is no one person that is coming to save you. And all these pundits and talking heads that have you believing that one person is going to come in and they're going to fix everything. I heard this when it was Barack Obama. I heard this when it was Joe Biden. I heard this when it was Bill Clinton. I heard this every freaking time. And you would think the American people would have learned that lesson by now. We got to pay attention to how the media has moved away from this particular issue. Notice corporate media is not covering Israel and Gaza that much anymore. Did Israel stop killing Palestinian people? No. They stopped talking about it so that the protests would stop and you would forget about it. And then they threw Kamala Harris in front of your face so that now you're distracted with that, along with the Olympics. That's how they trick you. But I didn't stop talking about it. Because what's happening to Palestinians over there, you think Israel's going to stop there? They're not going to stop there. They'll go into Africa next. And we all know the US government really doesn't care about Africa. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super sticker, Jay. What's up, Jay? Thank you, Sparky. Did you talk about the U.S. regime change in Bangladesh yet? Not yet. Someone sent me that story. I have to read that. And thank you for this. Love you, Sabby. You're the bestest girl ever. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the super sticker, Michael McIntyre. Thank you, Sparky. Anytime anyone says that Israel's our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. U.S. missionary John Sheehan. Thank you for this one as well. Fun fact, in 1492, the Ottoman Empire sent ships to rescue Jews from the Spanish Inquisition. Contrary to popular belief, Jews and Muslims have not been fighting each other for thousands of years. And thank you for this. Make Israel Syria again. In those Ottoman Empire days, Levant Jews got along fine with their neighbors, whether Muslim, Christian, or otherwise. Yeah, It wasn't always this way. Zionism changed these things. Thank you for this as well. Bring Cynthia McKinney back from exile to be in the next U.S. president's administration. And thank you, David. And they call Palestinians human animals. Sick. Yeah. Every accusation is a confession. Thank you, Penny. Mexico invited Putin to Sheinbaum inauguration and to review democratic judicial reform. Zelensky demands Putin's arrest if Putin goes. Well, that should be interesting. Well. Thank you, Sparky. Kamala married her Zionist lobby handler. And thank you for this. Remember, Putin was on the fence about invading Ukraine until he heard Kamala's speech at the Munich Security Conference. Thank you, David. Kamala's husband is Jewish, not Israeli. Important. Thank you for that. Thank you, B-Man. Ron Paul called out Israel long ago. I wonder what he's up to. Thank you, Trusting Success. The U.S. empire's narrative is crumbling. And thanks, Busted Leaf from Pakistan. I don't know I wish I could see what that was. It's a symbol, I think, but it shows up on StreamYard as a PK, so I'm sorry. And thank you, Damaris. I saw Kamala at an event for the Mexican American Bar Association when she was running for Senate. I wanted to take a picture with her. My husband literally grabbed me by the arm and sat me back down and said she's a bad cop. Kamala has that record, but she don't want people to talk about it, right? Right. All right, guys, smash that like button. We're moving on to the next story. We got the heavy story out of the way. We did that one earlier on. This one's going to make you laugh, though. This is kind of funny. I think you could use a couple of laughs. So apparently, Nancy Pelosi is on a press tour, and she published another book. It's called The Art of Power. And on this press tour, she has said some things that I felt like I really shouldn't have been in the room for. Nancy Pelosi is airing some, I guess we would call it dirty laundry, or some things about the Biden administration that I really felt like we were not supposed to hear. Let's start with the first one here from CNN, her interview with Jake Tapper. Nancy spills the tea.
We're back with former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi out with a brand new book, The Art of Power, My Story as America's First Woman Speaker of the House. So the chapter that is missing in this book, and I know you could write 100 books on fascinating topics, but the missing chapter would have to do with the last month and a half.
Yeah.
Since the debate, the June 27th debate that Dana and I moderated, you were watching it in your apartment here in Washington. What was your reaction when you saw him walk out there and then his answers or his inability to give coherent answers?
Well, I thought we were going to see Joe Biden from the State of the Union. I never want him to debate what's his name, because it's always, he's a joke. You know, it's not a funny joke, but it's a joke. And he said, no, I'm looking forward to it. And so he was confident about that. As one who has, as party chair in California, and also as a leader and speaker with my own candidates for Congress and the rest, not my own, but our party's, I always would just say, if you're going to debate, two things. Have a clear mind. And remember, as Christine, my daughter, always says, the Tour de France is won in bed. Get rest. Be rested and clear. You know why you're here. You know what you care about. You know how you want to get things done. You want to show people what's in your heart. You don't have to memorize anything. You don't have to have days of prepping. Mm-hmm. So when I saw him, I thought, in my view, over-prepped, not a good idea.
Let me pause for a second. FM said, why was the debate in June? They always start in September and October to get Joe Biden out of office, to push Joe Biden out, because they knew, again, Joe Biden has been declining over the years. So it wasn't just this debate. That was their way of getting him out, right? It was a CNN debate. They were the ones that wanted to do it. But yeah, That was their way of kind of pushing him out the way and putting someone else in, because they were looking at the polls, they saw the numbers, and they were like, look, we're not going to win. So we got to find a way to get him out. And he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to leave the race. So that was their way of pushing him out. So Nancy Pelosi here apparently had issues with the debate Joe Biden had with Donald Trump. And listen to what she's saying here. This is really funny. She said, well, you know, you got to get some sleep and plenty of rest. And it looked like he might have over prepped a little bit. So let's go on. It's interesting.
Did you think that was all that was going on? I mean, the president has not had a full cabinet meeting since last October. There are people, Democrats that I've talked to, who think that obviously he's not able to communicate the way he used to be able to communicate. And they think that people in the White House were hiding this from senior Democrats like yourself, keeping a close control over who got to see him.
I think this president he is a consequential president.
Of course.
In his term in office, he has accomplished great things, as we talk about.
How do you think history is going to remember his decision to not run for re-election?
I think history will honor him as a selfless person, a selfless leader.
Have you talked to him?
No.
Still no?
Well, that would not be unusual. That several weeks would go by and I wouldn't talk to him.
What do you?
Yeah, but it may not be unusual where several weeks may have gone by for you not to talk to him. But considering you were one of the people that pushed him out, Joe Biden is like, I'm not trying to talk to you, Nancy. Nancy, Obama, and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, they all created a coup and said, this is how we're going to get rid of Joe. Joe has got to go. So no, Joe's not trying to hear from Nancy right now.
You want him to know about?
Well, he knows I love him. 3 generations of our family are big Joe Biden supporters. My husband and I, Paul, and our children and my grandchildren, they love Joe Biden.
America did not have a female Speaker of the House until you in 2006. I want to hear your honest take on this. We've never had a woman president in this country. Do you think that we can have a woman president? Do you think that are you concerned about whatever Vice President Harris's pluses and minuses are, independent of her gender notwithstanding? Do you worry at all that America will not be willing to elect a woman president?
Let me pause there for a second, because this is what you see what's happening here, right? So I already warned you guys. Same thing that happened 2016 with Hillary Clinton. If you are a man and you are not for Kamala Harris, they're going to call you misogynist, right? If you are not a person of color and you're not for Kamala Harris, they're going to call you racist. It's funny. I even see them trying to call Black people racist that don't want to vote for Kamala Harris. It's weird, right? So what good is it to have a woman as president who has no policies and no plan? Kamala Harris to this day still has no platform on her website. So what good is it? Just for symbolism? Just so we can say we had a female president? Because I'm warning you guys now, even though she had the debacle in Michigan, Kamala Harris can still win, especially for people who are not concerned about Gaza and are just focused on, what's going to happen here in the U.S. Kamala Harris can still win. And just imagine if Kamala Harris becomes president and everybody will be cheering like, oh, it's a woman, it's a woman, it's a woman. All the people who just want a woman, because that is a thing. Some people told me to my face they just want a woman. Imagine what will happen come next year when they realize that Kamala Harris has no policy, no plan. Imagine.
Well, let me just say, because people say all these other countries, Margaret Thatcher, Indira Gandhi, you name
Hold
it.
in my ear, right?
All these people, but they are in a parliamentary government. All you have to do is for your party to win the parliamentary elections, and you're the head of the party, and the party chooses to elect you. That's different from running nationally for president and being subjected to an electoral college that is dominated by a few states. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by all rights. We think she should have been president, but she didn't win the Electoral College. So it's harder. I think that Kamala Harris should win because she's the best. She'll be a great president. She happens to be a woman,
right?
And that's icing on the cake.
But do you?
But the problem is, so first of all, I don't think that she would be the best. And second of all, again, I just see her as a cop. And second of all, she said she just happens to be a woman, but that's not what the Democratic Party is running on because, again, Kamala Harris has no platform. So the whole she just happens to be a woman. No, that's not even a thing because that is what the media has been selling. First woman, female, woman of color, first Black woman. And a number of people have argued back and forth that she's not a Black American, that Black Americans are an ethnic group that she is not a part of because her mom is from India. Her mom is Indian. Her dad is Jamaican. I believe her dad is Jamaican and part Irish as well. That it's a mixed bag, whatever. It is what it is. But if the Democratic Party wasn't trying to run her on her identity, this would not be an issue. The Democratic Party is notorious for doing this. She has no she has no platform. She has no platform because she has no plan.
You think that will be held against her by enough? Are you worried at all about it, knowing how difficult it was for you to even be the head of your parliamentary system and even get into leadership? Are you worried at all about whatever that was? And you write about it in your book very ably. Somebody saying when you wanted to be in the leadership of the House Democrats, somebody saying, well, why don't you just make a list? Why don't you ladies just make a list of what you want and we'll give it to you? Somebody said that to you.
But when they said, who said she could run?
Right, who said she could run?
Light my fire, well, you
right.
poor baby.
And that's the Democrats. Are you concerned about...
in this century.
Yes, just a few years ago, really. Are you concerned about that attitude standing in the way of a President Harris?
We don't agonize, we organize. President Harris is astute politically, strong officially and policy-wise, and deeply faithful. And I think that her strength will lead us to victory. And the only reason I became Speaker is because I led them to an electoral victory to win the House for the Democrats.
Right.
That's why.
Pause for a second. We're going to pull this up now. Roger and I have been checking this every day. Roger has me doing this. Roger has me doing this because he said, Sabs, we're counting the days. We're counting the days, right? So let's see. Let me go back. Let me make sure I'm pulling up the right information because, again, I just want people to understand. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know how many times I have to show this because this is sad. And I'm telling you guys because I've already read articles and I already know. Her goal is just to beat Donald Trump. They just want someone that can beat Trump. They're not necessarily focused on policy at this point in time. And you'll see that if you just go to her website. And this is something that I've been focusing on here. Look at this. So here we go again. Now they added Tim Walz to the website. Here's the donations. They're asking for donations, of course, as any candidate would do. But once again, if you go to the website and you click Meet Kamala Harris, we went through that. Meet Tim Walz, we showed that. Take action, events, store, donate. So every political candidate right now that is running, whether it's third party or independent candidates, whether it's Donald Trump, I mean, Claudia De La Cruz has had a platform on her website since day one. Jill Stein has a platform on her website, has been there for months, right? So RFK Jr. has a platform on his website, has been there for months. You don't have to vote for those people. I'm not telling you got to support them, but she is the only person right now that has no platform on her website because she doesn't have a plan. The whole thing was to get someone in there that could beat Trump. They had to pull Joe Biden aside because the polls showed that he could not beat Donald Trump. That's what the Democratic Party is focusing on. And so what they're going to do is try to say, well, we got to protect women's rights and focus on that. And you can't get Trump because Project 2025. And that's what they're focusing on. But they are fooling people because they make you think that there's nothing here. There's nothing here. Not only is there no platform, Roger, you'll have to tell me what day it is now. There's no platform, but Kamala Harris is not doing any interviews. I read that earlier today. So let's go back to Nancy, because you see, this is what I'm saying. And people say, well, she was just thrown in. How could she have a platform so fast? She ran for president in 2020, did she not? And she's already backtracked on 2 of those policies. Remember, she backtracked on Medicare for all. She flipped on that. She was for banning fracking. She has flipped on that. So what's funny to me is the people who didn't support her in 2020, when she actually had better policies, she supported better issues and causes, have just decided to jump on this train, and she has no freaking platform, and she flipped on healthcare, and she flipped on fracking. People are just going with anything.
That's organized. I get it.
You get it organized, mobilized, message.
Don't agonize, organize.
No
Got it.
wasted time.
Last question. It might be hard for people to believe, but you're 84 years old. You're still a potent political force. Mm-hmm. You're running for re-election. Mm-hmm. I don't know if writing this book or just the last month and a half has had you thinking more about your legacy, but what are your plans? I mean, obviously you're going to have another term in Congress. Are you just going to keep going?
Her plan is to bring her daughter into her seat. I spoke to Shahid Buttar about this a long time ago. He ran against Nancy Pelosi multiple times as a progressive through the Democratic Party. And it's very clear, if you're paying attention to what's happening in San Francisco politics, the plan is to bring her daughter into her seat. So we're looking at political dynasties here. Don't forget that Gavin Newsom also is related to Nancy Pelosi by marriage. And his name was floating around as a presidential candidate as well. She's not going to tell him that.
Well, who knows? I'm not one to paint myself as a lame duck, but I do have other things I want to do in life. And right now, my focus is on winning the election. To have Kamala Harris be president, Tim Walz, we're so proud of our House member, but they were all great candidates for vice president. Any one of them would have been great. Tim is fabulous, and we're happy to have a House member there. And that's my goal, and to win the House for the Democrats, and hopefully that means the Senate as well. So that's my focus right now.
Again, she's not going to obviously tell him, like, yeah, she wants to bring her daughter in. Honestly, again, 84 years old, I think. If you guys were 84, wouldn't you retire if you had the money that Nancy Pelosi has? Nancy Pelosi has a lot of money. Don't let it fool you. She also, remember, her father was mayor of Baltimore. Nancy Pelosi also comes from a political family, right? So the next interview that she had, this is with the New Yorker, and this is audio. There's some crazy things she says here. She lets you know exactly how she feels about the Biden administration. Listen to this.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump. What are you seeing and what are you feeling?
Well, first, let me just say why this election is so important is because that is all at risk. Mm-hmm. Okay, so my goal is he will never step foot in the White House again. Winning an election is a decision. You make a decision to win, and then you make every decision in favor of winning. All I wanted was a better campaign because I did not see a campaign that would beat him. Lies, misrepresentation, the people think the economy's better under him. So that night I was startled because I had never seen that.
Let me pause. So did you hear what she just said? She knew that Biden couldn't win. So she wanted to put someone in that could beat Donald Trump. And she said, she told him, she was like, people were saying the economy was better under him. I just couldn't believe that. Grocery store prices weren't what they are now. That's the big one for me. I don't know about everyone else. I know some people don't have a car, so gas prices may not be an issue for you. I don't drive as much as some people, so I get gas every now and then. But the reality is the biggest one for me is the grocery store prices. Like it's very noticeable. So the prices weren't as high. I don't know. People don't want to admit that. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or what, but my bank account says different. Okay, listen.
No, I never saw that.
In other words, you'd never seen Joe Biden come up short like that.
Never. No, in fact, earlier in the day when I was with the members, they were like, oh, how's it going to be? Trump will be so awful. Yeah. I said, don't worry about it. Joe Biden's State of the Union is going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great. He had it down. He was going to do it. He felt great. And I had confidence in him. I didn't think it wouldn't be good. But anyway, and then that happened. And I think everybody was stunned.
Mm-hmm.
It was stunning.
It wasn't stunning for me. I don't think it was stunning for you guys either, right? Because if you've been paying attention, you knew that Joe Biden was on the decline. Remember in the 2020 debates, Joe Biden was having difficulty there too, and people were making fun of it and cracking jokes and all that kind of stuff. Like, so it wasn't a surprise for me. But she's spilling some tea.
You did something that I'll never forget. And there was a lot of noise, a lot of calls for Joe Biden to step down as a candidate. I was one of many who wrote a column saying that. Many politicians. You did something on July 10th. You came on Morning Joe and you said this: it's up to the president if he is going to run. This is, by the way, this is when Joe Biden has already said, I'm staying in. It's up to the president if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short. He's beloved, he's respected, and people want him to make that decision. And then you went on to say, I want him to do whatever he decides to do, and that's the way it is. Whatever he decides, we go with. Now, I'm guessing you've read Machiavelli in your life, and even more than that.
You're just saying that because I'm Italian.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I got it.
But that way of putting things was, to give it a phrase from a certain book of yours, The Art of Power, and the language of power, that certain things are said and certain things are left unsaid. How much do you think through what you're going to say on a show like that? Because you knew damn well what you were doing.
So how much does she think through what she's going to say on a show? He's like, you knew damn well what you were doing. You guys remember that when she was on Morning Joe and they said, well, do you think Joe Biden needs to step out of this race? And she said, let's just see how this week goes. That was her way of saying, yeah, I think, yeah, we got to get him out of here. Next thing we knew, Joe was gone. Just like that. What's really funny to me, too, is the name of her book, The Art of Power. Talk about bragging. The Art of Power. Like, I don't know, man.
When they asked that question,
You knew the question was coming.
I was hoping not. I was thinking I could talk my way through my 5 minutes and get out of there.
No such luck.
Yeah. No, and here's the thing. I've known Joe Biden for over 40 years, since I was chair of the California Democratic Party. And I love him so much. I think he's been really a fantastic president of the United States. So I really wanted him to make a decision of a better campaign, because they were not facing the fact of what was happening. And I take some responsibility for the House.
Let me pause here for a second. So Nancy Pelosi is telling you, when she said they were not taking responsibility for what was happening, she's talking specifically about Joe Biden, right? Because one of the things Joe Biden said in an interview before he decided to drop out of the race is that he didn't believe the polls. Does everybody remember that interview that he had with George Stephanopoulos? He said he didn't believe the numbers in the polls. So he really was just not with it. Like, he really was like, no, there's no way that can be. Like, he didn't want to believe what was right in front of him. Just like when people were chanting Genocide Joe right in front of his face, like he really just couldn't believe it. He's just kind of like, what? What is that? What is going on? I saw this in 2020 when protesters confronted him and they said over 3,000 something deportations under Obama, Biden administration. And he just stood there like this, like, because he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that the world has changed, that it's a different time. It's 2024 and it's a new generation. He couldn't buy it, couldn't believe it. So Nancy said she had to step in.
We couldn't see it go down the drain because Trump was going to be president, and then he was going to take the House. Imagine how that would be. Well, we don't have to imagine. We saw. The only thing he did when he had the Congress and the White House was to give a tax break that had 83% of benefits going to the top 1%, $2 trillion to the national debt. And that's all they did. And they wanted to get
But
elected.
you were talking to one person.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking to Joe Biden in a certain kind of language. How would you describe that language? It was almost the way a mother or a father who is particularly good at being a parent tells a child who's already made a bad decision, I'm waiting for you to make a decision of a different sort. You're looking at me and waiting for this moment to pass.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of why you're even asking it, because you know I'm not going to answer it.
So I want to get to the other part that kind of went viral on Twitter here. This part here, yikes. This one says a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I don't know if Nancy had a glass or a couple of glasses of wine before this interview, but this is the one that really blows the lid off the pot. Listen.
I love him so much. I think he's been really a fantastic president of the United States. So I really wanted him to make a decision of a better campaign, because they were not facing the fact of what was happening. Just a little background.
It was like
I've
you
never
felt his
been
pain.
that impressed with his political operation.
Nancy is like, I don't have a glass. I have a mug, but Nancy is like, let me hit the. Nancy was hitting that wine before this. She said. Now, see, there's two versions of this interview, right? So here you hear that part, but on the other version, you don't hear her say that. So that one must have been edited. But listen, look at the look on her face.
Him to make a decision of a better campaign, because they were not facing the fact of what was happening. Just a little background.
It was like
I've
you
never
felt his
been
pain.
that impressed with his political operation.
There it is. So now everything's coming out. She admits she was not impressed with his political operation. And she says specifically, she's talking about Joe Biden. She's not talking about Biden and Kamala. She's talking specifically about Joe Biden. I've just never been that impressed with his operation. Everything's coming out now that Joe Biden is no longer the candidate. Is everybody paying attention to this? Now everything is just a spill the tea.
Biden's operation.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I just hadn't been. They won the White House. Bravo. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But so my concern was, this ain't happening. And we have to make a decision for this to happen. And the president has to make the decision for that to happen. Let me just say, I won't say necessarily I knew what I was doing at that time. I knew what I was doing in the whole thing, not just that show.
What was
You hear this? She said, this ain't happening. And now she's saying, I knew what I was doing, not just at that time, but the whole show.
I was doing at that time. I knew what I was doing in the whole thing, not just that show.
And what was that?
That Donald Trump would never set foot in the White House again. I love him.
So, you know, Nancy Pelosi said to Jake Tapper that she hasn't spoken to Joe Biden in a couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure she's probably not going to hear from him, and not now. Or if she does, it's going to be like, what do you mean you had no? She didn't agree with his political operation at all. So this just goes to show you again how these politicians, they're actors, right? Because before Joe Biden decided to drop out, was pushed to drop out of this race, before that happened, Nancy Pelosi was going on to all these different shows and she was bragging about Joe Biden, saying he's doing an amazing job. Those were all lies. And that's what I told you. The best actor is a politician. You can give some of these people awards, give them Academy Awards. So that's what's pretty exposing about that interview, is that Yeah, there's some exposure about the Biden administration there, but more so, it exposes Nancy Pelosi for the actress that she is. I felt like when I saw this, I honestly felt like, and you guys tell me if you've seen The Real World, but when I saw this, I felt like this was like a real world confessional, like an episode of The Real World, and they're in the confession booth, and it's like, I'm not really supposed to hear this conversation, but you hear it anyway. That's what it felt like to me. The Real World, when things start getting real. Yes. Danny, Real World Boston was a trip. Oh my God, I'm sorry. We have to have a funny story, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you, Sparky. Israel is worse than the segregated American South in that although it never worked, the South was supposed to be separate but equal. Israel was supposed to be separate but unequal. Ooh. And it's interesting there. It's just supposed to be separate but unequal. Yeah, because well, the creation of it. Thank you, Jay. It is interesting how Jake Tapper can mention someone else's incoherence to someone who's incoherent. Hilarious. Thank you, David. The POTUS is just a pleasant face for war and empire. There you go. And you'll see that in one of the stories later. I'm going to show you something else that's coming from Anthony Blinken. Thank you, Sparky. Kamala uses the same campaign consultants as Gavin Newsom. They're known for not publishing a platform so the candidate can tell voters what they want to hear and can't be held to any position. That is interesting, Sparky. Well. That is interesting. Bryce, I'm going over to Nancy's place. She knows how to party. And Nancy been hitting that bottle, right? Drunk confessions with Nancy. Oh my God. Leroy says, LOL, she's trying to be like Trump, art of the deal. They're all clowns. Oh yeah. The art of power, art of the deal. Yeah. Thank you, Nexus. What she's doing is by saying she has never been impressed is detracting from his actions now. Nancy is very smart. That's a good point, Nexus. Thank you. And shout out to Sam for the super sticker. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Based. Quick announcement, and then we're on to another funny story. It's Friday, so quick announcement, guys. Don't forget, we are giving out school supplies to kids in Roxbury. So when people ask me, what am I supposed to do if I don't want to vote for Trump or for Kamala? Or what happens if we just get Trump? A lot of people go back to sleep after a presidential election. And for those of us that do organize, or if you're interested in organizing, this is a way that you don't go back to sleep. And it also helps people. So we do mutual aid over at RBN. We are having a back to school barbecue Sunday, August 18th at 12 p.m. This will be at the Bruce C. Bowling Municipal Building, first floor lobby, 2300 Washington Street. That'll be in Roxbury. Again, we are giving out school supplies for K through 12. I believe I have we're donating school supplies to the Roxbury community in Boston and hosting a barbecue at the event. Please donate whatever you can to help. And thank you guys so much. I decreased the goal. I think I had 3,000. That was way too high. We don't need 3,000. So I decreased it to 2,000. And we're doing really well. We've raised $970 so far. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate that. But yeah, this is a really big one for me. Last year, we did a community barbecue in Jamaica Plain, and we also did a food and clothing drive. I believe that was also in Roxbury near Dudley. But the back to school one is a really big one for me because I don't think people realize how expensive school supplies have become, especially now, given that the prices are high on pretty much almost everything. But not only that, but, you know, there are some families that really rely on something like this. There are some families that really just, they can't afford to buy school supplies for every child, especially if you have multiple children. And they are requiring them to have more these days than I ever did when I was a kid. When I looked at that list for schools in Roxbury, I was like, Jesus Christ, I never had to have that much stuff. So yeah, this is a big one for me, giving back to the kids. And I'll make sure to share the link here in the chat It's from Spot Fund. I use Spot Fund because GoFundMe got like all like, you know, a Nazi like on people last year where they started like withholding people's money and stuff like that because they didn't like what they were talking about or whatever. I ain't got time for it. So we use Spot Fund, which is really cool. And I'll try to remember, I forgot last time, I'll try to remember to put that link in the comment section and pin it after the stream. But yeah, for the people, what are some of the things they require the kids to have? So they're requiring kids to have headphones now. Like it's just, I saw this list and I was like, really? Like headphones, whiteboard or whiteboard erasers. And I would think that would be for the teacher, but I don't know. It's a mess. I have a long list of it, but it's in my my email. But yeah, it's not the usual. Like I'm expecting crayons and pencils and the notebooks and stuff like that. But I think things are just so, yeah, David, they requiring them to have headphones. Yeah, I know. I don't know, dude. I haven't been in a K through 12 classroom in a long time. So I don't know. I don't know what they got them doing. But yeah, so excited for that. Okay. Now we're going to get into another story here. Chris Cuomo and Mehdi Hasan had a little bit of a debate on News Nation. Now, Chris Cuomo, he is another one that has been disingenuous about his coverage about the protesters in this country. Been very disingenuous, and he knows exactly what he's doing. We cannot say that he no longer works for corporate media because News Nation is a part of Nexstar. Nexstar is corporate, just like The Hill Rising. So he does work for corporate media still. Do not be confused. That being said, he had a conversation with Mehdi Hasan here because he believes that the reason why Josh Shapiro was not chosen as VP is because the left in this country is anti-Semitic. You can't make this up, man. You can't make it up. Let's bring it in. This is a good one, though.
A great debater. Zeteo is the name of his new enterprise. I love the word. It means to seek in Greek, and it's great. Media company. Mehdi Hasan, former MSNBC host, I believe the best they had in the stable, joins us now. Mehdi, we got 5 good minutes. Explain to me your understanding of why Walz was the right pick and it wasn't Shapiro.
Oh, just to get to the point very quickly, Tim Walz is America's fun uncle. He's likable, he's charismatic, he's a great attack dog, he's a Midwest governor, he's done amazing things in his state with just a 1-seat majority in the Senate, expanded child tax credit, expanded voting rights, secured abortion rights, gun control. He's a gun owner, though, as well, and a hunter. So he ticks a lot of...
Pause. He's also done some other things too. Don't forget again, Mehdi Hasan, even though he's no longer part of MSNBC, he still has status quo and establishment talking points. It's hard for people to leave what, he may have left MSNBC, but it's still, it's still part of him. So just keep that in mind. We talked about some other things about Tim Walz. He's not perfect either. We talked about the fact that he was the one that called in the National Guard during the George Floyd protest. Don't forget about that. We talked about the fact that he broke treaties for indigenous tribes because he did not want to stop Line 3. So we're talking about another pipeline that went on indigenous land, which is not supposed to happen, giving them dirty water again. Again, all you got to do is point to places like Flint, Michigan. So there are a number of things that Tim Walz did. Tim Walz is also a Zionist. So this is why this conversation that Chris Cuomo had to me didn't make any sense, because his whole framing was that people didn't push Josh Shapiro to be a part of Kamala's possible administration because the left is anti-Semitic, or they didn't want him because the left doesn't want Jewish people or something like that. It was really ridiculous because Tim Walz is a Zionist. He has spoken at AIPAC conventions. Yes, he was one of the first politicians to call out for a ceasefire, but he does doublespeak just like Kamala Harris. He was calling for a ceasefire, but he still thinks that we should send weapons to Israel. So like I said, you got to know all of it. You have to know all of it. Let's continue.
Boxes, he's what Democrats have been waiting for a long time, and he compliments Kamala Harris very well.
Pennsylvania's more important. Shapiro is a star in the making. He was being trotted out as a favorite. What happened?
Okay, so Chris Cuomo believes that she should have chosen Shapiro because he feels that Pennsylvania is more important. It just, nothing about his policies, nothing about his character. I mean, we're talking about a guy who covered up a murder, right? This guy is not innocent. We're talking about a guy who covered up a murderer. We're talking about a guy who called student protesters KKK members. Like, this is what we're talking about, folks. And he's just like, Pennsylvania is more important. That's all that matters. Another one, Chris Cuomo, another one from an elite, privileged family.
So, I can't believe you're making me do this, Chris Cuomo, but I'm going to agree with Bill O'Reilly for the first time in my life, who was on your previous segment. I'm going to take a shower straight after this, don't worry. But he said it right, that, Shapiro went in. He's very ambitious. I think CNN reported that he was overly ambitious in his interview with the vice president. Politico said that the vice president camp thought he was showboating. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying that was the perception from the Harris campaign as reported by CNN Politico. Look, picking a running mate, you've got to gel together. You've got to have some chemistry. She had it with Waltz. She didn't have it with Shapiro. As for winning Pennsylvania, there's no actual academic evidence that governors in swing states win races for you on the ticket. True. Now, let's just cut to the chase, Chris. The reason I'm here is because you were on Twitter last night suggesting to me that it has to be anti-Semitism. What else could it be? And I've just explained to you many reasons.
No. I didn't say it has to be.
To explain to you,
I didn't say it couldn't be anything else.
Well, yes, he did. Chris did say that. I saw the back and forth between Mehdi Hasan and Chris Cuomo. See, people don't see this if you're not on Twitter, but Chris Cuomo likes to say one thing on Twitter and say something a little bit different when he's on News Nation. But if you follow his Twitter account, you'll see some of the things. He likes to pick some fights with people sometimes. But yeah, he did say that. Look at the expression on Mehdi Hasan's face.
Not wrong to ask because the context, Mehdi. One.
Give me evidence.
Okay, here it is.
Let me turn it around. What's the evidence that it's anti-Semitism?
Here, look, I don't know that.
I haven't seen any.
I don't know that it is, but it's not wrong to ask, especially in this context. Your premise that he walked in there and they didn't like him, they already knew him. They were pushing him. They liked him. He wasn't so interested in it because he was afraid of what it would mean leaving Pennsylvania. She wanted him to come in. So contextually, I don't know that he could have just walked in.
Actually, I'm going to push back on that. Nancy Pelosi had already publicly stated that she supported and endorsed Tim Walz before Kamala even made the selection. I believe Bernie Sanders also made that statement before Kamala made the selection. So when Chris Cuomo says they wanted Josh Shapiro, two of them didn't. And another thing, by the way, if he believes it's anti-Semitism and that's the reason why Josh Shapiro wasn't selected, well, is it misogynist because Kamala Harris didn't choose a woman? Is it? I mean, we can come up with a whole bunch of different things. Is it misogynist that she didn't choose Gretchen Whitmer? I didn't see Chris Cuomo make a statement about that. This is the same guy who threatened to throw someone down the stairs because they called him Fredo.
And pissed them all off.
But that doesn't mean it was anti-Semitism.
No, now I got another piece. I got another piece.
Someone who doesn't.
I got another piece. I got another piece of proof.
Let me jump. Go on.
Here's the next piece of proof. So they're trotting him out as the favorite. Then the far left flank starts calling him Genocide Josh. And all of a sudden, he starts getting all this heat from them about his position on Israel. And
pause. The reason why people were calling him Genocide Josh is because he volunteered for the IDF. Now, obviously, if you're an Israeli by a certain age, you have to participate in the IDF. He is an American. He grew up here in America. He volunteered to go over to Israel and be a part of the IDF to kill Palestinian people. So they had every right to call him Genocide Josh. So how is that? Do you see what I'm saying? The anger and the frustration is misdirected. Instead of that anger and frustration being directed towards Josh Shapiro with his statements and his actions, volunteering to go kill Palestinian people, his frustration is towards the protesters and the names that were, called, that he was called. This is what kills me, folks. Again, yeah, Genocide Josh, you volunteered to go kill people.
And all of a sudden, he starts getting all this heat from them about his position on Israel, and a lot of it was ugly on there that went way beyond his take on Gaza and seemed to be a reflection of his faith. And now you have Jewish voters in New York being split between Trump and Harris because of how they perceive it.
This is where I'm going to push back, Chris.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to push back here, Chris. No, you've got no evidence that any prominent leftist, any prominent Democrat mentioned his faith, cared about his faith. The article in the New Republic that laid out the case against Shapiro and Israel was written by David Cleon, who is a Jewish writer from New York. We're allowed to criticize his stance on Israel without being accused of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes, you are. I want to go back to this poll, though. Look at this. Jewish New Yorkers, Kamala Harris 49%, Donald Trump 50%, almost split right down the middle. Really interesting, huh? And before Kamala announced that she was running in this race, Donald Trump was actually gaining supporters from Black voters in New York. So this will be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, I think New York is still going to be a blue state because of New York City. That's where most of the people are. But that's interesting.
The article in the New Republic that laid out the case against Shapiro and Israel was written by David Cleon, who is a Jewish writer from New York. We're allowed to criticize his stance on Israel without being accused of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Genocide, Josh, it's very inflammatory. It's not a phrase I would use, but it's not anti-Semitic because, hold on, they call Joe Biden Genocide Joe, and Joe Biden is not Jewish. So it's not an anti-Semitic pejorative. It's a pejorative. It's not anti-Semitic. So even if they rejected him because they're worried about losing Arab American voters in Michigan, that's because of his Israel views, not because of his faith. J.B. Pritzker is the Jewish governor of Illinois. He has not said as many inflammatory things about Palestinians or campus protesters as Shapiro. I would have been fine with Pritzker. I wouldn't have been fine with Shapiro. So it's got nothing to do with his faith. It's insane for Trump and Republicans and others to suggest that this is about Judaism. The most senior political officials who are Jewish in this country are Democrats, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, all four Jewish governors in America. They're all Democrats, right? Mm-hmm. The only person who's ever run on a ticket for president or vice president who's Jewish was Joe Lieberman on a Democratic ticket. Yep. And by the way, accusing the far left of being anti-Jewish is so absurd because in 2024, a lot of the far left are going to vote for Jill Stein, who is Jewish. And in 2020, they wanted Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish. So let's stop.
Let's pause and think about that. We'll go back to that for just a second. This is why Chris looks so stupid. This is why Chris looks really dumb. Because this part right here, 2024.
The Attorney General, all four Jewish governors in America, they're all Democrats, right? Mm-hmm. The only person who's ever run on a ticket for president or vice president who's Jewish was Joe Lieberman on a Democratic ticket. Yep. And by the way, accusing the far left of being anti-Jewish is so absurd because in 2024, a lot of the far left are going to vote for Jill Stein, who is Jewish.
That's me. See, they like to leave this out. Chris Cuomo probably didn't like him saying that. Jill Stein has been on News Nation, so I don't know why Chris is trying to play dumb. She's been on News Nation multiple times for this presidential campaign, but that is a reality. Most of us in 2024 that they call far left or whatever, most of us are going to vote for Jill Stein. And I don't mean the far left that were like, oh, we just didn't want Biden. Now it's Kamala. I'm not talking about that. That's not far left. Those are just Democrats. Those are just standard Democrats. I'm talking about those of us that are to the left of the Democratic Party and are not willing to go along with the Democratic Party, period. I'm a registered independent. I came from the Bernie Sanders movement. And unlike some others, I still stand by those principles. And I still think that if we can give everyone in Israel health care and give everyone in Israel free college, we need to guarantee those things for people here in our own damn country. And we're sending money over there. So I still believe in those principles. And unlike others, I'm not willing to bend the knee and just go along with the Democrat establishment just because this is what we have. I'm not willing to do that. I want this system to break. I want us to have multiple parties in this country. We need to have fourth and fifth and sixth parties, just like they do in the UK. I don't understand why people just basically put themselves in this box of these two parties that, from my experience, are not benefiting the Black community. That's for sure. So I don't understand that. So I'm one of those people that will be voting for Jill Stein. Then he goes on to say this, how quickly he forgets.
And in 2020, they wanted Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish. So let's stop the nonsense gaslighting and weaponizing of anti-Semitism for partisan aims.
I don't know that Bernie.
That's true. See, this is what people forget. By the way, when Bernie was running in 2020, I remember, I believe it was the New Yorker, they created a picture that was and this was anti-Semitic. It was a stereotype of Jewish people, and they made Bernie Sanders look like that stereotype. I don't remember seeing a lot of these pundits like Chris Cuomo and all of them on CNN and MSNBC. I don't remember them speaking out about that and saying that's not right, that's anti-Semitic. They weren't, because Bernie Sanders wasn't what the party wanted. What the party wanted was someone who was obviously more establishment, more status quo, etc. Now, Bernie has gone along with Dem leadership, and he gave up a lot of his own damn values. All of them just fall in and get in line so they can continue to be career politicians. But that is true. So what is he talking about? We're talking about Bernie Sanders, the same person that was able to get thousands of people at his rallies. And I'm not talking about these rallies that Kamala Harris have. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders produced thousands and thousands and thousands of people at these rallies, way more than what you're seeing for Kamala Harris right now. This is what a lot of people forget. I was at those rallies, and Bernie didn't have Meg the Stallion. Okay, people showed up based on the message alone. He didn't have to have Meg the Stallion. He didn't have Kid Rock. None of these famous musicians were at these rallies, except for the one I think he did in LA, which is with Public Enemy. And that was towards the end, before they were getting closer to, I think, getting closer to the end of the debates. But for the most part, people came out to hear about the policies and the platform. Kamala don't have that. That's why she bringing out Meg the Stallion and all these other people and yada, yada. So he goes on to say this part here.
In 2024, a lot of the far left are going to vote for Jill Stein, who is Jewish. And in 2020, they wanted Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish. So let's stop the nonsense gaslighting and weaponizing of anti-Semitism for partisan aims.
I don't know that Bernie would like that you say he's Jewish. He would say he's culturally Jewish. Now he's agnostic. But Mehdi, the argument...
No, Bernie, I've never heard Bernie Sanders say that. You see what I mean? You see what's trying to happen now? So now Chris is trying to make it seem like Bernie Sanders would not say that he is Jewish.
Well, true. He calls himself Jewish, Chris.
It depends. It depends. Mehdi,
no,
I
really
appreciate
doesn't.
you. Your arguments are well met and appreciated. I think that you got to ask questions, and it's good to have answers as well. Thank you for coming here to do it. We'll do it again soon.
You see, this is why I just, Chris is such a clown. He's such a clown. Like, I've never seen someone just such a fake clown, not willing to really speak to anybody that's really going to challenge him to that left. That's why he wouldn't have that conversation with Max Blumenthal. He's so scared. But Jill Stein, she tweeted this after she saw this exchange with Chris and Mehdi Hasan. While I don't think it's just the far left who want living wage jobs, housing, and healthcare as human rights, an urgent response to climate crisis, and an end to the war and genocide, I appreciate the shout out. I'd be happy to discuss this on your show, Mehdi Hasan. So, Mehdi Hasan, the ball is now in your court. Will you take Jill Stein up on that offer? I think you should. And I would like to see, everybody keeps talking about the Kamala Trump debate, which apparently is now set in stone. It will be in September. I would like to see Kamala Harris debate Jill Stein. I would like to see that debate, because how are you going to debate Jill Stein on Israel and Gaza? You can't. It's not like Kamala can call her anti-Semitic. Jill Stein is Jewish. Interesting. All right, let's go to the comments. Thank you for the super chat, Sparky. Despite Walz only being slightly older than Kamala, he looks older than Biden or Trump. It might be because he's losing his hair. Thank you, Samantha. I love how they call people the far left for calling out a genocide as if that's so radical. Mm-hmm. Oh, you know how they feel about the people who don't want the wars anymore now. Thank you, Sparky. Chris Cuomo playing dumb. I don't think he's playing. He told that guy he was going to throw him down the stairs. You guys remember that conversation with Chris Cuomo? That guy called him Fredo and he said he was going to throw him down the stairs. Thank you for the super chat, Mocracy. The Russian sting Ukrainian flag, Covidian Green Party ? Seriously. So again, we've talked about this on the show multiple times. Those were 3 people that were part of the Green Party that made that statement. People in parties make statements all the time. That doesn't mean everyone in the Green Party felt that way. And everyone that I've talked to in the Green Party did not feel that way. So there's that. And I don't know what you mean about the Ukrainian flag thing. You must be talking about Howie Hawkins. Sabby not fan of Howie. Not a fan of Howie. Okay, we can go to part 2, Eric, for the tight VNC. Thank you. All right, guys, smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we are now moving on to the final story here. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine speaking in a swing state, in a state that started the uncommitted campaign against Joe Biden, that they were uncommitted to vote for him because of the genocide in Gaza. And imagine protesters confronting you during that rally about the genocide in Gaza, and your response is to threaten them with Donald Trump. Well, that is exactly what happened at the Kamala rally in Michigan. I want to show you the protester point of view first, and then I'll show you the angle from where Kamala Harris is standing. Let's go ahead and bring this in here from Sanaa Seed. This video makes me sick. This is the point of view of the anti-genocide protesters. There are more people here who are fine with their government funding and arming a genocide than there are against it. And the looks and yells, my God, yeah, this video is something else, ladies and gentlemen. So again, this is the protester point of view at the Kamala Harris Detroit rally. Listen to this.
Embargo and end a free Palestine. Kamala, you can't hide. We won't go for genocide. Kamala, you can't hide. We won't go for genocide. Kamala, you can't hide. We won't go for genocide. Kamala, you can't hide. We won't go for genocide. It's time for you.
First of all, this guy right here with the mustache, who is this, like a bootleg Magnum PI? You know, the 80s mustaches came back in style. You see the mustache?
Kamala, you can't hide. We won't go for genocide. Kamala, we can't hide. We won't go for genocide. Kamala, you can't hide. We won't go.
Go back to, look, watch this. The woman, the black woman in the crowd, she was the one doing the most. Hold on.
It's time for you.
This woman right here. You know what I mean? You know what's interesting about this? She's willing to do all of this for Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris ain't willing to do a damn for the black community. You willing to get out there in front of the protesters and do all this woo and screaming and all this kind of stuff because you're mad because they're interrupting Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris ain't willing to do a damn thing for you, boo. Kamala Harris is spending her time adding other racial groups to the Freedmen's Bank. That's what Kamala Harris is doing. People are on Twitter. Nina Turner's on Twitter asking Kamala Harris for reparations. She ain't trying to give you no reparations. She too busy adding other racial groups to the Freedmen's Bank. She ain't trying to do a damn thing for the black community. But you out here willing to look a fool and fight for Kamala Harris. That is the embarrassing part. The embarrassing part. Now I'm going to show you from Kamala Harris's point of view. Shout out to Reggie from Boston. Kamala is talking to people like it's a Twitter space. Sad. And in Michigan, ground zero for the uncommitted vote. Her arrogance will be her undoing. First and foremost, I want to point out, most of the time, The people that you see standing directly behind the candidate are placed there. I've been to a number of political rallies. I saw this happen even at Bernie's rallies as well. They put certain people behind the candidate. For example, they're not going to put someone behind the candidate that's going to protest against the candidate. So the people that are standing behind Kamala Harris, those people were already vetted. So just, you need to know that when you understand why they respond the way that they do. So here we go.
Against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
We're going to pause right here because I'm going to show you something about her mannerisms. Watch this.
To end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
I want you to pay attention to her nonverbal behavior because a lot of people are focusing on what she said, and we'll get into that as well. But look at her nonverbal behavior. Notice something about Kamala Harris, that she pauses at certain times where it can be memeable, right? So she pauses there, and then she's going to do what people like Roland Martin is referring to as the black mom stare. Like, this is done on purpose. She did this when she was speaking in Selma on the bridge, and she said, we need a ceasefire. And then she paused so that would be the soundbite and the meme. And then she went on to say, at least for 6 weeks, but that was drowned out by the crowd. So what I'm trying to show you is that this was already rehearsed. Kamala Harris had already figured out what she would say and how she would respond if she were interrupted by protesters, and she tried to make it memeable. Watch this. So you see how she gives that look there? This is what Martin was talking about. Roland Martin said she gave the black mom stare. Yeah, it's an act. And people took it too. People took it, and they're already making memes with it and said, oh, don't talk to her. She shut them down. Oh, she gave the black mom stare and da-da-da. Yeah. People are just falling for it too. People don't understand that in politics, as with other positions as well, more so and in the entertainment industry, this is why I like to call politics somewhat entertainment, because politics, in a way, a lot of these people are acting. This is a front. This is what this is. Now, see, while you focusing on her stare and the memes about it, you're not focusing on her policies. You're not focusing on what she's done to the Black community by policy. You're not focusing on her record as an attorney general. You're not focusing on the number of Black people that she locked up. You're focused on the stare that she gave.
As I'm speaking.
And notice that she gave the other look again, the even more like forceful look, right? Okay. Notice that you don't see the rest of the crowd. Notice you only see the people behind her. The people who I told you with these political campaigns usually are placed there on purpose. They're the people that, support the political candidate 100%. It's not someone who may, but then will try to protest. That's usually how this works. So this is all an act. This woman is an actress. And I'm telling you guys now, because I see a lot of people jumping on this train, we're going to come back to this video. Come 2025, if she wins, we're going to come back to this video, and I'm going to say, I told you so. And see, then she just lets the crowd do the rest for her. Now we're going to go back to the if you want Donald Trump thing, because I'm going to show you something else she did there.
Climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
Let me tell you what Kamala Harris just did. When I first saw this video, I said, man, that reminds me of something that Hillary Clinton would say. That sounds like something that Hillary Clinton would say. The demeaning tone, talking down to people. And then on top of that, holding the threat of Donald Trump as president over the protesters' head who are asking for an end to a genocide. How low can you go? So this is Kamala Harris using her experience as a cop to hold something over your head. She sounds exactly like how a cop would speak. Reminded me of Hillary Clinton. And this is why, I'm going to tell you, keep it real. This is why I said that Kamala Harris has a similar problem that Hillary Clinton has. And that's not that they're women. It's that they're not genuine. And you can see it. The way that they speak to people, they both pander to whatever group they trying to recruit. You don't hold the threat of your opposition over the head of people who, some of them, have family members that have died in Gaza. You're speaking in Michigan, in the state that started the uncommitted campaign. And you're telling these people, long story short, you don't give a damn. It's me or it's Donald Trump. This is what she is saying to these people. Think about this, folks. It's not like these kids are protesting about minimum wage increase. They're protesting about a genocide. You're talking to the people who have been directly affected and impacted about the genocide in Gaza. You are in their town. You're not from Michigan. You don't live there. And this is a swing state, a state that you need to win. Because according to John Fetterman's video the other day, John Fetterman said that Donald Trump is going to win Pennsylvania. So you need Michigan. So to speak to people in such a way, such disrespect. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, and that's probably exactly how she was as Attorney General. So you don't get to do that to people who have lost their family members, who have had to deal with this for almost a year. You don't get to do that, folks. You don't get to do it. And a lot of people are eating it up. Glenn Greenwald's calling it out. We got to bring it all in because Glenn has been going off on people. Online left liberals already extracted all the value there is to get from feigning anger over Gaza. They fortified their radical brand, profited from traffic, etc. It was always predictable they would drop it soon as the election approached, and they had to work to elect Dems. Let me tell you who Glenn Greenwald's talking about. He's talking about the commentators that have decided to get on board as well. These so-called left commentators in independent media that spent all these months talking about the genocide in Gaza and said they couldn't vote for someone who supported this. Now they have their audience members believing that Kamala Harris supports an arms embargo. That is an absolute lie. And he calls it out here with Emma Vigilant. She says, let me make this smaller so you can see. Glenn, please reply with evidence that we pretend to care about Gaza. We must have been playing a long game by covering it daily on Majority Report. The New York Times says she's open to meeting where uncommitted will request an arms embargo. Thoughts on Trump's position on Gaza? I'm going to go ahead and debunk that in just a second. So apparently she has met with some of those protesters. From what I understand, she met with them prior to the rally, that she did meet with them. And they're saying that she would be open to an arms embargo. But I'm going to go ahead and debunk that in real time, because that is not what her campaign is saying. And that damn sure is not what mainstream media is saying. So we're going to go ahead and debunk that. And then I'll get back to the other thing, because this is another example of Kamala Harris trying to both sides it. This is the double speak. You tell these kids in private that you're open to an arms embargo. These kids show up at the rally. In front of the rally, you tell them, you know what? You interrupt me, you don't let me speak, then you get Trump. Right now, I'm speaking. So Glenn Greenwald replies, because she said here, this is from the organizers themselves, notable in both Elabed and Alaway thanked the vice president for her openness to engage with the demands of uncommitted voters. Glenn Greenwald replies and says, you are lying with the goal of helping to mislead leftist voters into voting for Kamala by inventing that she's open to an arms embargo with Israel. Here's her top national security advisor saying you're full of shit and that she wouldn't. So everybody, let's go to Phil's page. This is Phil. Phil Gordon, assistant to the president and national security advisor to the vice president. This is who Phil is. Now, what is Glenn Greenwald referring to when he tells her with the goal of helping to mislead leftist voters? So just because you covered Gaza since October 7th over and over again, that doesn't mean you're not willing to sell out Palestinian people to grow your brand and get behind Kamala Harris. I have watched many in this space not stand for a goddamn thing. I have watched many in this space jump on a topic when it is trending and when it is popular and ride that wave and then not talk about it again. I watched several in this space during the George Floyd protests, cover the George Floyd protests and talk about police brutality. And after George Floyd, I watched several of them never talk about another police brutality story again. These people just be riding waves so that they can grow their channels. Most of these people don't care about a goddamn thing. And some of the ones that did in the beginning, as they started to grow and make more money, they're just like, whatever. Especially the ones that are millionaires. Emma Vigilant comes from a very wealthy family, fam. A lot of the people in left independent media come from very wealthy families. Don't get it twisted. Just because they were a part of the Bernie Sanders movement and they pretended to care about these working class issues, that doesn't mean that these people grew up poor. It doesn't mean that they grew up scrapped. And it doesn't mean they weren't ready to hop onto the next big trending thing, boo. I've seen it from all of them. From a lot of them. Very few have been principled. Very few. And yes, Glenn is right. A lot of them have done it. They sat there and told you they could not support it. They could not do this. They made a lot of money off of covering Gaza. And then the moment that Kamala Harris was thrown into the position instead of Joe Biden, even some of the ones who publicly told Jill Stein to her face that they supported her, Crystal and Kyle, hello. The moment Kamala Harris was put into that spot, they were ready to grift onto something else. So don't come for me and call me a grifter or call me a whatever, because I'm not a millionaire unlike some of these other fucking people. I've stayed legit on the principles and I've stayed consistent. They are the ones who want to ride waves and they get mad at me because I am not willing to bend at their beck and call. There are very few that have stayed principled on this issue. I watched multiple people sell out Palestinian people. All of a sudden, the genocide don't really matter. They're willing to go along with it. All of a sudden, AIPAC money is not an issue. There's nothing we can do about it. All of a sudden, it's let's just beat Donald Trump. All of a sudden, all these people for years who sat up there and told you not to support candidates that take corporate money are ready to jump on Kamala's back, who is taking corporate money because they want to interview Kamala Harris. They want to interview Tim Walz. They want to get these people on their damn show. That's what this is really about. And that's why a lot of them don't fuck with me, because I'll call it out. But Glenn is right. You can see it yourself. Because I said it here in response to a Feeney's post. Did you think the context make this better? Afeni was talking about another account here that said, oh, well, she met with them about arms embargo and said she was open to it. And I responded to Afeni and I said, no, it doesn't. It doesn't take away from her threatening them with Trump and holding that over their heads as they complain about genocide. Phil makes it very clear. She will not support an arms embargo. People are choosing to believe a convo will change her mind. It won't. And here's Phil. At VP has been clear. She will always ensure Israel is able to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist groups. She does not support an arms embargo on Israel. She will continue to work to protect civilians in Gaza and to uphold international humanitarian law. Kamala Harris ain't said anything about humanitarian law when it comes to the West Bank because she can't respond with Israel has a right to defend itself. Because you taking people homes, you squatting on people's lawns has nothing to do with you defending yourself. It has to deal with you taking shit. And it's not just Phil. Even right here, they covered it earlier today. Harris does not support an arms embargo on Israel. So do you see how people have just been lying to their audience? Emma Vigilant was there lying, blatantly lying, just so they can keep gaining subscribers, just so they can keep growing and keep their grift going and keep making money. It's a damn shame. And this today, the U.S. releases $3.5 billion to Israel to spend on U.S. weapons and military equipment months after Congress appropriated. That happened today. Okay. So people need to really stop believing the lies. They are lying to you. Willing to grift off of Gaza. God damn. People are really willing to grift off of the death, the genocide of a group of people just to make some goddamn money. One of the things that was pointed out about the way that Kamala Harris responded to those protesters is that even Joe Biden didn't respond to them that way. Here's an example from Halal Flow. This is worse than Biden. She's supposed to be more empathetic one towards Palestinians. Even Biden never did this. See? Watch.
Can't take anything for granted. Just think back before the ACA. A patient with a heart disease, diabetes, or a child with asthma couldn't get coverage. Why? Because the insurance company considered those a pre-existing condition, allowed them to deny coverage.
What about the healthcare in Gaza?
Everybody deserves health care.
Hospitals in Gaza are being bombed. Do they deny Why is that no one here right now?
Be patient. They have a point. We need to get a lot more care into the economy.
So do you see how Joe Biden responded to that versus how Kamala responded to the protesters? Kamala responded the same way that Hillary Clinton would. And honestly, folks, this is why I believe that Barack Obama did not want to openly endorse Kamala Harris. This is why I believe that Barack Obama had called for an open primary, because he believed, number one, he didn't think she could beat Donald Trump, which was admitted later, but also he believed that she may not be the best to put into this situation at this point in time with everything that's happening with Gaza. But also, I think Barack Obama believed that she would behave the same way that Hillary Clinton did. As much as I criticize Barack Obama for him lying to us, in particular, especially the Black community, as much as I criticize him for that, one thing I will say that Obama had that Kamala does not have is charisma, because that woman is not charismatic. She has that same temperament that Hillary Clinton had. How are you going to handle being president and you can't handle a couple protesters in the crowd? This is who you want in charge right now. We have multiple wars in the world. Ronnie Yakalik, who has covered Israel for years and the Middle East and other countries as well, but she's been covering this for a long time. This is what she said after seeing this video of Kamala Harris. She said, they hate us. The Democratic Party hates us. Their leadership supports our mass slaughter to steal our resources. And when we protest, they do this. They hate us. There is no changing this party. There is no changing this party. That means a lot coming from Ronnie Yakalik, because I know she was still willing to give the Democratic Party a chance. Ronnie Yakalik, I believe, most of the time is in Lebanon. So just keep that in mind. Breakthrough News does tremendous work. And all I can say is when you see people like Ronnie Yakalik saying there's no change in this party, this is what those of us at RBN have been saying for 3 years. Because you can't change the party because the party is owned by AIPAC, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Raytheon, other members of the military industrial complex, Wall Street. That's why you can't change it. I didn't really hear a lot of people saying to change the Republican Party because the Republican Party doesn't pretend to be something that they're not. They don't say they're not corporate. They don't say, don't get me wrong. People are like, why don't you talk about Republicans more? Like I do. I just posted a video about Lindsey Graham's crazy ass. I don't talk about them as much because they're not the administration that's in charge right now. But then also, they don't pretend like they're not doing these things. The Democrats pretend like they're not doing it. And behind closed doors, they're just as corporate and just as grimy as the Republican Party. It is a uniparty that is corporate and pro-war. And they don't care about us. Michaela Wilkes, she ran for Congress as a Democrat. She's calling it out as well. Kamala continues to try and align anti-Geno protesters with everything but what we stand for. On July 24th, she said we were terrorist sympathizers hosting an anti-Semitic hate rally. See, people forget these things. On August 7th, she's saying we want Trump to win. What we want is a ceasefire, land back, and an end to occupation. Michaela is 100% correct. So don't be fooled, ladies and gentlemen. Just because you see a candidate that has a little bit more melanin, that doesn't mean she's going to do the right thing for melanated people. That don't even mean she's going to do the right thing for the American people. Because let's keep it real, fam. Now, we just saw more money. I just showed you just went right back out the door to Israel. Another $3 billion going back out the door to Israel. In Israel, everybody has health care. In Israel, they have free college. But our government don't even want to give you that right here in this country. They'll give money to Israel, but they don't even want you to have health care. Does that make sense? And I don't care what political ideology you are. Put that aside for just a second. Don't you find it to be a little bit strange that they're giving money to the state of Israel where everybody has health insurance, universal health care, and everybody has free college, but they're not even willing to give you those things here to the American people? This whole thing about how we don't have the money has been a lie for a long time. The money has always been there. They just want to give it to somebody else who has things that we don't have. Now, Kamala Harris is going to follow this same course. Kamala Harris, she approved of sending these weapons and money to Israel, but she don't want to give you reparations. Everybody see this? She's willing to get out here and tap dance for every other group. The only time you see her trying to make inroads with the Black community is when she's going to go talk to the Divine Nine, is when she's going to go talk to the Greek organizations, is when she's going to go talk to the Black Boule. The majority of Black Americans in this country are not Black Boule. The majority of Black Americans in this country did not have that type of experience. She is catering to a certain class and a certain group that most of you are not a part of, because I don't see Kamala Harris in the hood trying to have these conversations with people. No, wrong class. But she willing to help other groups. Drew Dixon, who supports Kamala, this is how she responded. I was rooting for you, Kamala. We were all rooting for you. That's from America's Next Top Model, by the way. But this ain't it. They're sexually assaulting detainees, filming it, and debating the acceptability of sexual assault on the news. Not to mention the largest cohort of pediatric amputees and the starvation and the death. Do better, Kamala. And that's a Kamala supporter. But no, apparently, according to Kamala, we want Trump. Like, people complaining, we want Trump. The Abandoned Biden campaign, they responded to Kamala Harris. The Abandoned Biden campaign condemns Kamala Harris' contempt for anti-genocide protesters. We have repeatedly expressed our concerns about platitudes of promise in place of any and all action regarding the Israeli genocide in Gaza and the U.S. funding it. They go on to say here, responding to anti-genocide protesters, many of whom come from communities directly impacted by the U.S.-backed Israeli belligerents in the region. Harris said, if you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking. And now we are speaking. Madam Vice President, we have repeatedly expressed our concerns about platitudes of promise in place of any and all action regarding the Israeli genocide in Gaza and the U.S. funding of it. Without explicit plans and policies, there is no reason for any Americans of good moral conscience to believe the Harris-Walz administration will do anything to end this genocide. I hope everybody heard that loud and clear, because they won't. Continues on here. What Harris did show last night, I'll make this bigger for you guys. I'm sorry. I realize you can't really. Can we bigger? Okay, there we go. Where did I go? What Harris did show us last night with her actions was disdain for citizens of this country who are pleading for an end to a genocide. The vice president could have taken it as a moment of empathy and acknowledgement of grievances, but instead chose to conflate being anti-genocide with supporting Donald Trump. This was also apparent when Vice President Harris accused anti-Netanyahu protesters of being anti-Semitic, making no acknowledgement of their actual and explicitly stated grievances or even acknowledgement of police violence used against them. Abandoned Biden demands an immediate unconditional ceasefire ensured by an immediate arms embargo on the state of Israel. We believe that ending this genocide and enacting an arms embargo is not only necessary to protect Palestinian human life, but also necessary to protect our country and our fundamental rights. She did that in Michigan. And it wasn't just them. I want to go to another one as well, because the Chicago voters, let me go to that real quick. I'm sorry, I have everything so big. I'm just trying to search. Okay, here we go. Just to pull it myself. Let me go to the Chicago voters here. I have it on my page. I wanted to show you, because they had something to say to Kamala as well. I have a lot of tweets here. Is that Phil? That's the one with Phil. Sorry, guys. I know I tweeted before. Here it is. Well. This is from Amon. Oh, Kamala is not ready for Chicago, but don't worry, we're ready for her. DNC convention is just around the corner. It is in Chicago. There are going to be a number of protests there. And something else I said to respond to her tweet here. Chicago has the largest Palestinian American population in the United States. Chicago has the largest Palestinian American population in the United States. And the DNC convention is there and it's just around the corner. So they will be ready for Kamala as well. I know there's going to be a number of people, different groups protesting there because they're just so angry about this, and workers as well. Jay said, that's right. Kamala's not ready for us. Even the Kamala impersonator got in real big on this one. You've seen this before. You've seen her before, right? This is her making fun of her at the rally.
Okay, well, you can vote for Donald Trump if you want, but I'm speaking. You better get scared. Okay.
I mean, it was obvious that she was putting on an act, right? Now, I want to show you something that Rome said because he ends this so well. He sums it all up. How, long story short, Kamala said, fuck them kids. Listen.
Given to Israel to continue the genocide on the Palestinians, Kamala Harris stops down here in Detroit, Michigan, who has one of the biggest Arab populations in this nation. Not only was she greeted with smiling faces and open arms, but she was greeted with a group of protesters, the same protesters who more than likely has lost family members in this genocide that she has aided. Instead of going the Obama route, saying, I hear you, I see you, just lying to the people, you want to know what she said?
You want Donald Trump to win? Then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
Yeah. A lot of these people say that these protesters' anger is misplaced because Kamala Harris already called for a ceasefire. But that's not necessarily true. Yes, she did call for a ceasefire, pause, scene, for 6 weeks. Now, please, go back and do the time to when she said that and tell me what is today. The ceasefire would have been over and the genocide would have continued. Now, if there's one thing I have learned being born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, is that Arabs and Muslims stick together. And word like that travels fast around these communities. And I think she just opened a can of worms she would never be able to put the lid back on.
That's why I told you, notice in Chicago, they said, oh, well, she's not ready for us. See how fast it traveled?
I think these are one of many protests that she will be facing, especially here in the Midwest. Now, what does this mean for the future of the Democratic Party? It means that we aren't taking it anymore. You can't just run and say, hey, I'm not that guy. When you and that guy policies align with each other, especially when it comes to foreign policy. It means that time is changing and we are changing with the times. And if you don't, this party has no future. It has no future without the Arab vote. It has no future without the young vote. And the more black people are waking up to your bullshit, it definitely doesn't have a future in our communities. So time is changing. The people is changing. The Democratic Party has stayed the same for many moons. And now people are forcing you, holding people accountable for their actions. There's no longer, I'm not Trump. You have to show us with policy. Because you said you was going to be stronger on the border than Donald Trump. You said you was going to fund Israel just like Donald Trump is. You're going to do everything that Donald Trump has done. And then tell us you're not Donald Trump. Yes, you may not be Donald Trump in the sense that he's a older white male, but you are Donald Trump when it comes to policy in every way. So again, what does this mean for the future of the Democratic Party? There is no future without any change. There is no future without any change. And if you ignore the people will do you one back.
Very well said there, Rome. He's right about that, because, you know, I'm telling you what the Democratic Party's plan is, what they've been trying to do, because they're starting to notice they have lost support among African-American voters, right? Like there was a big surge of support for Barack Obama for African-American voters, and nobody else has been able to get the same, even close to that percentage that Barack Obama did. But Barack Obama let down a lot of black people. So it's just a reality. And so what they're trying to do is Kamala Harris, you know, like I told you, a lot of white women love Kamala Harris, right? She appeals to some other groups a little bit differently. Like I said, if you go to black people that are in lower income neighborhoods, particularly urban areas, they're not feeling Kamala Harris like that. Someone posted the video the other day of the guys in the barbershop that said they weren't feeling Kamala Harris like that. That's what I'm saying. The people that you see on corporate media, for the most part, that's saying they're going to go out and support her, those are usually people that are part of the Black Boule, people are part of the boomer class. But for a lot of us, nah. Nah. Now, that is not to say that she can't win, because she can bring out white suburban women and to try to fill that spot, right? Just by talking about the women's rights issue alone, she can bring out that group of people, the Elizabeth Warren type, you know, I don't know. She can get to that group of people, and she can also try to get the Latino vote, right? But last I saw, her approval rating with the Latino Americans also isn't good. So there's that as well. But I don't know what to say, except that I can't believe people fell for it. I can't believe people actually thought that Kamala Harris would be different when it came to Israel, when she basically was telling you that she wouldn't be, but she did it in such a way that it could be disguised as, oh, well, maybe she will help. But if you really listen to what she was saying, she was trying to tell you when she said Israel has a right to defend itself, and you know that the U.S. sends the most weapons to Israel, that means Kamala going to be sending them weapons to Israel. Okay? When she called for a ceasefire and then paused and said at least for 6 weeks, that was Kamala Harris letting you know that genocide was going to continue, even under her administration. When you see this posted over and over again, and I would say follow the money, and you see that Kamala Harris has taken over $5 million from the Israeli lobby, you think they're going to give her $5 million to end the arms sales to Israel? You think they'll give her $5 million to end the genocide? You think they'll give her $5 million to call out Netanyahu and hold him accountable? No, they pay you to do their bidding. And now what you need to start asking your question is this. She done already sold out for another group. She done already made things more difficult for freedmen, for descendants of slavery in this country by policy, by adding Latinos and other groups, other minorities to the Freedmen Bank. She willing to sell every group out, but I'll tell you this much. She ain't gonna sell out Asian Americans though. She's not going to sell out South Asians. No, she's not going to sell out the immigrant community. No. And that's why I laugh when I see all these, especially if you're descendant of slavery, clapping and tap dancing for this cackling woman who spent a lot of time locking people like you up. It is a scam. She's an actress. She fooling you just like Obama did. And people gonna fall for it again. So you know what I say? Let her win. Let her win so then I can come back and tell you I told you so. You have to get to the point where you're going to demand something for your vote. And for people, before you come to me and say, well, do you want Donald Trump? No, I don't. I'm not saying you got to vote for anybody. You can sit your ass at home as far as I care. I will say if you're in a ballot initiative state, you should go out and support those ballot measures because that's going to hit you directly in your state. But you ain't got to support no damn body. And the reality is most people aren't going to vote. Just is what it is. But I am going to vote for what is right. I will be supporting Jill Stein when I go to vote in November. I will be voting against genocide. I will be voting against arming Israel. I will be voting against, the healthcare crisis that we have in this country. I will be voting against those things. That is what I am going to do. Because the whole lesser of two evils thing, that ain't really been working, fun. That ain't really been working. Joe Biden told you he was running on the soul of this country and genocide happened under his administration. You had all these presidents all these years that said they were going to fix the healthcare situation. Closest we got to that was Obamacare, which is basically a ripoff. But they got money to send to Israel. They got money to send to Ukraine. Your neighborhood's falling apart. Your school's under-resourced. They want to give billions to Israel every year. $3.8 billion go out the door every year to Israel, but they don't want to give you reparations. Everybody wake up. But Kamala's response, that right there lets you know exactly how she would be as president. And I can imagine her increasing the police state. I can see it all over again, folks. Let's go to some of the comments. She'll increase the police. I bet you. Watch. She'll give them more funding, militarize them, approve all the cop cities. She's a cop. And I don't know who wronged Kamala Harris in her life for her to be able to take that out on single Black parents in California, to punish these people who just trying to make a living. I don't know what happened to her in her life, but it's very obvious to me. She just want to lock people up. And so, for the person who said in the chat, RF, I again ask, what is Jill Stein doing for the Black community? Jill Stein's not vice president, but Jill Stein, unlike Kamala Harris, has a reparations agenda on her platform. Kamala Harris has no platform. People just shucking and jiving. People just got up and said, woo, yay, let's get this female, yay, oh my God. It's so funny too, because everybody has their different way of expressing it, right? Black women are like, I'm ready to have the first Black woman president. And people be arguing whether she's really Black or not. So there's that. When she was announced as senator, the newspaper said it was the first Indian female senator. I didn't see anything about Black in that newspaper article. I didn't see her correct the interviewer in the video and say that she was Black also. But people just jumping on. White women have come up to me and they've said, I'm so excited about Kamala. Aren't you excited? No. And I'm getting a little worried and a little weirded out. Why are you so excited? Aren't you excited to have a first Black female? Aren't you excited? And I'm like, no, I'm really not. Why are you so excited? I'm starting to get concerned. They had this video called White Guys for Kamala that's going around on Twitter. And they're like, as white men, we have to get, this is hilarious. I showed this to my husband too, who's cracking up. It said, as white men for Kamala, we got to get out there and we got to do our part. I don't ever see people come together like this to help communities, to feed people, to clothe people. I don't ever see people get together like this. Roland Martin, he hosts a webinar. Oh, Black men, let's get together. Black men, let's do this. Come on. We got to get together for our girl. It's too much. It's reminding me that I'm getting those vibes again. The whole, I voted for Obama twice. It's too much. But yeah, Jill has a reparations platform on her thing. I'll put it in the chat. Oh my God. I'm telling you, come on. Could you see Kamala Harris hanging out with the homies It don't even start it with the whole like, she said she listened to Tupac and da-da-da. I was like, a lot of people listen to Tupac. White people in the suburbs listen to Tupac. And God. Oh my goodness. Let's go to the comments. Thank you for the super chat, Eric. Love you, Sabs. You always have a great take on the big lies. Appreciate your exuberance and constant coverage of what many of us are over the top with. Thank you. Thank you, CL Rick's Laser. Sabs buggin' rules. Thank you. And I did RF. Thank you, Trust and Success. Mehdi Hasan sold out as well. Yeah. A lot of people that left like corporate media and started their own like YouTube shows, they're still status quo. He may be further like left than some of the others, but they're still status quo. Thank you, Benna Bang. She fell out of her coconut tree. Child, I don't know. Thank you, Salt and Pepper Natural. They said they needed her to be Mamala. Thank you, David. You can Pokemon go to jail. Kamala Clinton. Yeah. They like locking people up. I'm telling you. Thank you, Sparky. Not that Kamala looks ugly, but there's that old saying, politics is Hollywood for ugly people. Damn. Thank you, Dwayne. Kamala just lost Michigan. I don't know. She could still win. I'm telling you, there's a lot of Trump derangement syndrome. You think I'm joking? A lot of it. Thank you, Natalie. Did you know Trump was donated to Kamala in the past? It's a big club. Yeah, I remember that. Thank you for the super sticker, Aberdeen. Thank you. And thank you, David. Glenn Greenwald made a great comparison to Orwell's Animal Farm. If you don't let us do what we want, Farmer Jones will come back. Do you want that? That's a good point. Thanks, Jay. All this proves is that Kamala has a public and private position. She's Hillary Clinton 2.0. Agreed. Thank you, Courtney. I wanted to comment on Harris last Sunday's stream. Obama seems more like Camillary to me. She's making the same bad choices as Hillary in 2016. Thanks, Wanker Tanker. Money to Israel is about imperial foreign policy. Israel is used to dominating the Middle East and not let other big nations influence dishonorable empire. Thank you for the super chat, Twin Born. Jay Blue says, who wants to vote for someone who cooks greens in the tub? And that was that thing too. I'm sorry. Look, my family is from my grandparents grew up in the Carolinas, right? So they're from North Carolina and South Carolina. And they moved to Baltimore during part of that Great Migration. So my grandparents moved further north to get jobs in the city. My grandparents taught, my parents how to make collards. For those who don't know, they're collard greens, how to make collards. I've never seen my grandmother or my mother or my father or anybody in my family put no damn greens in no damn tub. So again, it's just the stuff that just come. I don't know, man. I don't know. Thank you, Twin Born. Harris is treating all Americans like Black people. Thank you for becoming a member, Joan Biaz. Thank you, Social Emotional Learning with Dr. Donnie. Somebody got to do a documentary on the Indian lobby, IPOC. And thank you, Cooper. Reportedly, Biden met with his protesters after his speech and whispered to them, no boyfriends till you're 30, sniff. But when Kamala was 29, oh, damn. Thank you, New York Varsity. Sabby is saying, make them earn your vote. Yeah. And thank you, N. Unbelievable how our government cares about the genocidal state of Israel than it's more than its own people. Yeah, 100%. And that's all I'm saying, guys. I'm telling people to demand something for your vote, and somehow people feel like this is a bad thing. I don't understand this. Yes, you should get something for your vote, especially if you donated money to these people. Okay. All right, folks, we are going to start this tonight, and then I'll have to finish this on Tuesday because I will be taking I will be off this Sunday, guys. I know I did the last 2 Sundays in a row, but this Sunday I will be off because I got some things to take care of. But what can you do? What else can you do, right? If you live in a ballot initiative state, this is where I think you really do need to show up to the polls. Because the reality is this is going to affect you directly in your state. A lot of times people just don't show up. And then these laws are passed and they're like, when did this happen? You know what I mean? So show up for this. Ballot measures. This is direct democracy. These are things that I get excited about because this is you voting for what type of law you want in your state. So we are now starting the 2024 ballot measures. These initiatives will be on the ballot this November. And we're starting with the state of Alaska, the UBI state, I like to call it. This is how it works in Alaska, fam. Citizens of Alaska, they can initiate legislation through the process of indirect initiative, meaning successful petitions are first presented to the state legislator. If the measure is not adopted, the law is then placed before the voters. In Alaska, citizens also have the power to repeal legislation. They can do this via veto referendum. Alaska residents cannot amend their state constitution via initiative or directly initiate legislation. The Alaska state legislator may also place measures on the ballot as legislatively referred constitutional amendments or legislatively referred state statutes. There is a single subject rule in Alaska. What does that mean? It means that for a ballot measure, it can only cover one subject. That means you can't have 2 subjects as one ballot measure. A lot of the states are like that, by the way. You'll see that as we get to the other ones. There are some restrictions. It says here, petitioners in Alaska may not propose legislation on certain subjects. Initiated laws may not dedicate revenues, make or repeal appropriations, create courts, define the jurisdiction of courts or prescribe their rules, enact local or special legislation. There are a number of signatures required to qualify for state statutes or veto referendums for the ballot. And it says here that for both initiatives and referendums, signatures equal to 10% of these votes are required to put the proposal before the voters. So I'm not going to go into all of that because it can become kind of cumbersome. But this one is very important if you live in Alaska. This will be on the ballot this year. Alaska minimum wage increase and paid sick leave initiative. You know what? I may have to move to Alaska because Alaska has a UBI, universal basic income. From what I've heard from people, the pay is really well in Alaska. I don't know. But now Alaska is trying to put forth a measure to increase the minimum wage and paid sick leave as well. Let's get into this. This sounds exciting. If you vote yes for this in November, this supports increasing the minimum wage to $15 per hour by July 1st, 2027. Obviously, I think it should be more than that at this point, ladies and gentlemen. Hell, Massachusetts passed this years ago. Okay. Providing employees the ability to accrue up to 56 hours of paid sick leave per year if their employers have 15 employees or more. It provides employees the ability to accrue up to 40 hours of paid sick leave if their employers have under 15 employees. And it prohibits employers taking adverse action against employees who refuse to attend employer-sponsored meetings regarding religious or political matters. A big clap, fam. Can they make this? Can they pass this? Can they pass this? Because I never agreed with employees having to attend, any type of these employer-sponsored meetings that are religious or political. I don't agree with that. Keep politics and religion out of the workplace. Y'all don't think you should be mixing all of that together. So can they pass this in Alaska? So if you're in Alaska, this is a big one for you. This November, Alaska minimum wage increase and paid sick leave initiative. I like that. Again, I think the minimum wage should be higher. You know that 15 isn't going to happen automatically. That $15 will be in 2027. I hear you, Otto. Otto says it should be $25 minimum. Yeah, and I think Professor Wolf said it should be even higher than that if we're going to adjust for inflation, right? It goes on to say here, I just want to highlight this as well. How many minimum wage ballot measures have been approved in the U.S.? From 1996 to 2022, 28 minimum wage increase measures on the ballot. Voters approved 26 and rejected 2. The last 2 states to approve minimum wage measures were Nebraska and Nevada in November 2022. And I covered that. And guess who rejected it? It was Missouri and Montana. So it was defeated in Missouri and Montana, but the last 2 states that just passed it was Nebraska and Nevada. And this is important because people have to understand, Alaska is a red state, Nebraska is a red state. But if you follow the ballot measures, you'll see that even some of the red states are passing progressive laws. The voters are choosing to pass progressive laws, right? So this is why I think direct democracy is even more important. And I wish every state were a ballot initiative state, because just imagine if that would be something to look forward to. If you don't want to vote for the president, or you don't want to vote for even the Congress members or whatever, that means that if every state were a ballot state, you would show up to at least support those ballot measures, because again, that's direct democracy. So what it'll look like on the ballot is question 1, question 2, question 3, like that type of thing. We have that here in Massachusetts. And I also think if every state were a ballot initiative state, that would increase voter turnout. Just saying. Just something to think about, folks. And so it shows you how this would increase over time. $13 per hour would be July 2025, $14 2026, and $15 by 2027. And after this, the minimum wage would be adjusted annually for inflation. The adjustment would be calculated each September 30th by the Alaska Department of Labor and Workforce Development for the preceding calendar year. And by using the 100% rate of inflation based on the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers for the Anchorage metropolitan area and compiled by the Bureau of Labor Statistics and United States Department of Labor, the adjusted minimum wage would be rounded up to the nearest 10 cents. The adjusted minimum hourly wage would apply to work performed the next calendar year when it will be effective. Tips and gratuities, this is important to note. It can't be applied towards the payment of minimum wage. You guys know about this, right? Like you can't, because you get tips and all that, right? So it would also provide employees with the ability to accrue a certain amount of sick leave based on how many employees their employer has. So we went through all of that. So yeah, that's a big one coming to Alaska this November. So far, the Alaska AFL-CIO union supports this, and so does the 1630 Fund. I think this is a good one. Who opposes this? Oh, Greg Sarber, board member of Alaska Gold Communications. California passed a similar new minimum wage law that went into effect of April this year. However, as brief updates, since California's new minimum wage has gone into effect, over 10,000 low-wage workers have been fired from their jobs because their employers could not afford to pay the new higher wage or found cheaper alternatives like automation to replace the workers. Instead of helping employees, the new law put them out of work and into the unemployment line. That sounds like a capitalism problem to me. Sounds like a capitalism problem, because if all these CEOs weren't trying to exploit the workers and weren't trying to take most of the wealth and give the workers under them so few, sounds like you wouldn't end up with that issue. That's what it sounds like to me. It's 2024. You mean to tell me you can't pay people $15 an hour? Sounds like a capitalism problem. Everybody should have a living wage in this country. That's my take, folks. Now, pay attention to this, guys. So far, there's over $822,000 that is collected to support this measure. Usually, this goes the way of cash. So usually, whichever one has the most money, whether it's support or oppose, that's usually the way it ends up going, because there's going to be a bunch of negative ads. For those of you in Alaska, there's going to be a lot of negative ads about this. And I just read you one of the arguments that oppose it, right? Which is, no, people are going to be laid off, just like in California. So if you have more money to spend to oppose it, you're going to see a lot of attack ads against it. But right now, it seems like most of the money, or all of the money so far, is to support the measure, not to oppose it. So this could actually pass, ladies and gentlemen. Again, that is Alaska. Let me go up here. That's Alaska, ladies and gentlemen. This will be on the ballot this year. And that is minimum wage increase and paid sick leave initiative. So if you are up there, you are probably looking forward to this one. All right. We will come back next show and we will dive into Alabama. No, not the band, the state. We're going to roll tide next time, and I'll tell you what's going to be on the ballot this year in Alabama. Yeah. All right. Let's go to some of the comments and we'll go ahead and wrap up, guys. Thank you for the super chat, Captain Vader. Perhaps Trump and Stein should debate instead, because now is Harris a legit candidate if no one vote? Bruh. Look, I didn't want to say, look, we talked about it a little bit, but I'll say this. Like I said, if she wins, that's one of the arguments that people are going to make. Watch. Because no one voted for her in the 2024 Democratic primary. VMTer, we got natural psychedelics on the ballot here in Massachusetts. Shh. Why are you telling people? Stop giving it away. We haven't reached Massachusetts yet. Roger, 40 states have initiatives on the 2024 ballot. I've gotten through 12. That's why I'm starting them now, guys, because it'll be November before you know it. So thank you, Marvin. You think Kamala has hot sauce in her purse? What did Hillary say? I got that hot sauce in my bag. Oh my God. And thank you, Wanker Tankers. U.S. needs to honor treaties with First Nations Native Americans. If honored, about 1/3 of continental U.S. would be Native control. That's another thing, right? I hear you. That is the show, guys. I hope that you have a great weekend. Again, no show on Sunday. I will see you guys Tuesday evening. I'm recording with Glenn Greenwald on Monday afternoon, and that video should premiere Tuesday afternoon. So we got a lot to talk about. All right, guys, that is it for me. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.